Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, stream. Let's go, people. We are back. We are alive. I'm off from work, and I am here to give you all the best severe weather live coverage on YouTube. What's going on, everyone? What's up? Zach Phillips, what's up? It's amazing to be back, honestly. Doing actual severe weather coverage for once. And I got here just in time. I was looking at it this morning at work, and I saw it was starting to increase, and I'm like, oh boy, it's starting to get pretty bonkers, dude. So we might as well go and get right into it. But first off, I just want to say thank you all for coming out to the stream. You know, it may not seem like there's a whole lot of people, but honestly, I don't really care. That's not what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about us talking about weather and us trying to save some lives. So let's get on and let's get on down to business, everyone. Slight risk has been issued for southern parts of Kentucky into central and western parts of Tennessee, into the very southernmost part of Missouri, into the northern parts of Alabama and Mississippi, into much of Arkansas, northern parts of Louisiana, into the Texarkana area with Oklahoma and Texas in and around there, marginal for much across the deep south into the Ohio River Valley, or the southern parts of that, to say the least. Hail, this is a first, honestly, in a while, I should say. 15% hatched risk, which means that on normal circumstances without the hatched, it would be a 15% chance of hail with an inch or greater. That would be the size, so it would be an inch or greater, and then with the hatch risk, it doubles, so now it's 2 inches or greater, and that is damaging. All right, if it hits any part of your car, windshield whatsoever, boom, that will leave some dents, maybe even some cracks. So if you live over in the Texarkana area, definitely want to look out for that large hail, because that's not fun, especially if you're outside and you have no protection whatsoever. Wind, 15% across the board, so the 15% would indicate that you would have a chance, that much of a chance, of getting 58-mile-per-hour winds or greater. And so that'll extend into the Texarkana area and continue into the Ohio River Valley, into maybe even the southern Appalachians, maybe the western parts. And then the tornado risk is a large 5%, and this is exactly what we're going to see later on tonight as it continues to ramp up. Actually, as I mentioned before in the beginning of the stream, the models actually uptrended quite a bit, and there is a very good chance along a line of storms that we could see some embedded rotations, maybe even some supercells in the Texarkana area. And actually, if I were to designate a hot zone, it would be right in that Texarkana area. So right about, I'll get my square out here for y'all. That's not a square. It would be right in this area. That is where I'm expecting the worst storms to kind of pop out in those general vicinities. Yep, so let's go ahead and get into the models here. And I know I may not be talking with you all as much in the chat quite yet, but once we get there, once I kind of break down everything, that's when I can start answering some questions and making sure that you all have a nice day, especially with some forecasts. But let's go into some of the timing of these storms here. And unfortunately, there isn't really a good view on pivotal weather for me to be able to dictate as to, on a wider scale, where specific areas will get storms. But we'll just break down our hot zone first and then head over towards the Ohio River Valley, Nashville areas as we go along. So let's take a look at the HRRR model, and you can see large band of storms that have already kind of popped up and become pretty scattered for the most part. They're kind of heading into the Little Rock areas, not exactly Texarkana. Texarkana is right about here, and the storms are a bit more towards the north and west. But as time goes along, you'll see how the storms kind of move gradually to the north and east, and more storms pop up, including some that form into Texas, which is the reason why there's a 5% chance for wind and hail and all that down there. So that's something to keep in mind as that continues to move on through. And another thing to keep in mind is look at all these scattered storms that move further east. That is something to definitely keep in mind, especially since it's really one of those things to where once you get wind shear that start to ramp up, anything within the line can really do some damage and even create a couple instances of tornadoes. But you can also see down here in that hot zone that I was talking about earlier, some of these scattered discrete cells. And some of these could even be really tornadic and maybe even supercellular. So something to keep in mind with all of that, that you can get all sorts of risks within those areas. But then as time goes along, you can see the line kind of consolidates, and that's more or less when it turns into a wind risk, which would be around the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock hours Central Time. So it's something to keep in mind, that the good news is later on it will start to turn into a wind risk, but there could be some instances where you might still have cells that could produce tornadoes in and along the line. So the quick spin-ups could be an issue later on tonight. But then as it continues to move on through, it seems as if the line kind of dims down a little bit, settles down a lot more, and it won't be that big of an issue overnight. So that was the Texarkana area. Let's head over to the Ohio River Valley, and we can see practically the same thing, honestly. Scattered storms then turn into this kind of consolidated line with a couple discrete cells out in front. Now I would take most of these discrete cells, if you had pinpoint accuracy, or if you were relying on this for its pinpoint accuracy, I'd take it with a grain of salt. But you could definitely see scattered storms out in front of this line here, and that is the issue here today, that you could get some of these to kind of ramp up and produce little quick spin-ups in and along the line, and even out in front of the line, as we are seeing here. So the line kind of pushes on through. You can see it gets to central Kentucky and even southern Kentucky at about 6 o'clock, give or take. And then it'll start to form into a consolidated line and push through Nashville at about 9 to 10, maybe even 11 o'clock, give or take. So something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through later on tonight. If you live over in those areas, especially near Nashville, further down south along the border of Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama, that's where you guys could see some gusty winds later on. Let's take a look at some of the conditions, because I was looking at it earlier this morning and I was seeing how bad it was. And by the way, I'm taking this with a grain of salt, the significant tornado parameter, but just because it's on like a wider scale, I kind of want to see what the atmosphere is like, or at least according to the models now. And trust me, I don't use the significant tornado parameter to base off my forecasts. It's more or less just something to where I look at the worst case scenario and kind of make a judgment off of that. But if we take a look here, this is the reason why I said it's a hot zone down here. There's a lot more cape, and there's a lot more ramped up conditions across the board, and that's something to keep in mind there. There's actually PDS tornado sounding here down in southern Arkansas, but yeah, I don't really pay attention to this possible hazard type, mainly because it'll say that for practically everything. So it's one of those things where meh, it is what it is, and I'll just wait until it actually comes around. But you can see here the cape numbers, especially around the surface, are around 2,000, and that's pretty good for this time of year, especially since we're at the end of February, and it's usually around the time of year to where we get around 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. So this is definitely higher than usual, and the wind shear has been as good as it's always been, or as fast as it's always been, I should say. And we can also tell, based off of looking at the wind shear along the side here, that as the wind shear ascends in height, it gets faster and faster. And what that tells me is that we can see some supercells develop out in front of this line, maybe even within the line. So that's kind of the reason why I put my hot zone out over into central Arkansas and near the Texarkana area, and mainly because I saw the opportunity for supercells. I saw how the photograph was curling off, and that's exactly what you're going to want to see compared to some of these other areas where the 0 to 1 kilometer shear is pretty straight, pretty linear. So the fact that that's relatively, and I mean relatively good for this time of year, it was worthy of my hot zone and worthy of my stream here today. And by the way, you know, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna stream all too much. I'm going to try and stream as much as I can. It's just work for me, especially since I decided to take this semester of college off, specifically because I'm not paying 10 grand to have online classes. I'd rather go into class. But work has just been pretty insane. I've been working 6 days a week, and I've just been trying to get enough money for either college or to put it back into the stream or whatever weather equipment I may want to use. But yeah, I kind of want to take a look. Actually, let's answer a couple questions here. It's Andrew's weather predictions. What's up? Nice to see you here. If you're actually Andrew, nice to see you here. You think we get some crazy weather out in this event other than flooding? Because flooding's pretty bad here. Yeah, there's a bunch of flash flood warnings. As you can see across the board, all these green polygons are flash flood warnings. So if you are in a flash flood warning, make sure to seek higher ground, whether it's the second floor of your building. Turn around, don't drown. If you drive and you have somewhere to go and you're listening to the stream, if there is a flooded roadway and it doesn't look too deep, don't risk it, because it actually has to do with the perception of where you're sitting at in your car. And typically what happens is it tends to look shallower than it actually is, and that's how some people actually get stuck in some of these, you know, flooded roadways. So please don't risk it. If there is an alternative way, don't feel like you are rushed for anything, even if you think you are rushed for time. Rather be safe than sorry. And believe me, all right, there was this one time where I was driving around and, you know, I tried to correct myself when someone was heading on to me. This was in the snow, by the way, and I kind of swerved off, and then I realized it was pretty, you know, there's a lot of snow there, and I didn't want to risk continuing to drive, so I just turned around, found a road that was paved, and I went on my way. It's the same principle for flooding. So just turn around, don't drown, don't risk any sort of behavior that can get you into trouble, because the thing of it is you really do not want to be in trouble, especially with this type of day. So yeah, bunch of flash flood warnings. You can there's actually been some reports of almost 4 inches of rain that's fallen, 4.5 here at Taylor, Kentucky. So definitely worthy enough for flash flood warnings, and that could be a foreshadowing for what's happening, what could happen out in front of the line as well. So something to keep in mind, something to definitely keep in mind as it continues to move on through. Do I think Bowling Green, Kentucky will get some crazy weather out of this event? Bowling Green, Kentucky is, if I remember correctly, kind of out of this event in regards to big severe weather potential. But it still could get some gusty winds. It's more or less just later on in the evening when it actually is supposed to get worse. And I'll have my radar scope over here too, just in case that I actually want to take a look at some other areas. Yeah, Bowling Green isn't actually fully out of the event yet, but it still has some storms that could push on through. So I wouldn't say you're completely out of the event. You definitely could get some gusty winds, maybe even some more flash flooding, but I wouldn't say you're I wouldn't bet too much on getting a lot of big severe weather potential. Any chance that the system caused flooding in the as catastrophic as May of 2010 in Nashville? I mean, I wouldn't say so. You could get some runoff that could reach into the Ohio River, so that's something to keep in mind too. Or up north, down south near Nashville, you might get some, well, you're probably going to get some flooding, but I wouldn't say it would be as catastrophic as that, honestly. So, I'd still watch out anyways. It still is pretty bad, but I wouldn't say it's that bad. But it's only an educated guess, so I'd still pay attention to the National Weather Service if you had the opportunity to. Is Madison, Georgia okay tonight? Yeah, I'd say Madison, Georgia is okay. What do I think about Maumelle, Arkansas? Yeah, give me a second. If you don't mind me looking that up real quickly so that I can actually pull that up for you. Melee. I will say, this will be 100% a rainmaker. Like, you're guaranteed to get over an inch of rain wherever you are across the board. I believe there's already flash flood watches out, as they should be. But I don't think it's going to be, like, catastrophic, like houses are going to be swept away and crap like that. I think if you're in valleys, you definitely should be aware. You should seek higher ground, because that's basically the areas across the board here. It's the southern to western Appalachians, especially if you go further east. But something to just kind of watch out for. Okay, so Maumelle or Maumelle is around Little Rock. They're kind of past it. They're more or less past it at the moment, or the line's kind of passed. So that's the good news. I don't see anything, or at least I don't remember anything from the model saying that there was going to be anything else that was going to push through. You might see some more scattered storms later on in the evening. I will say that much. Actually, there is more scattered storms. So I wouldn't say you're done yet. I wouldn't say you're done until probably 8 o'clock tonight. I feel like that's a reasonable assertion. I'd say it's reasonable. Yeah, those people are stupid. Anybody who drives through massive flooded roadways, I just... bleh. So let's take a look at the radar here. And I do want to take a look at some of the severe thunderstorm warnings to not only see if they're, well, why they're severe warned, but also to see if they're tornadic. So let's go with this one right here. This severe thunderstorm warning is for Grant and Jefferson County, and that'll be in effect until 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. It was issued for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So it's definitely something to keep in mind as you live into places like Pine Bluff and Whitehall. If we take a look at the maximum expected hail size, we don't see any hail on here. But if we take a look at the virtually integrated liquid, you can see that there is spurts of liquid spewing down. And the KDP also shows specific areas that there could be some hail as well. So something to keep in mind with all of that. There's also a major downpour that's heading towards Whitehall. So there could be some blinding conditions with just the visibility absolutely shrinking. And that's the same thing heading in towards Pine Bluff. So if you're driving along United States Route 79 Business Way, or United States Route 79, I'm not sure what the F stands for exactly, but if you are driving in those areas, you could expect some, the visibility churned down a bit, and you might want to take caution driving through those blinding rains. The velocities, we'll take a look and see that this definitely is pretty gusty. You take a look along the line here, you can see how it's forming its own kind of gust front, and That's typically what I want to look for real gusty winds. Not really for tornadic potential, because usually you would have to have the winds to swirl in, kind of like this, but a bit more organized to where you would have the greens all in one line and the reds would be right next to each other all in one line, and that's not exactly what we see in these areas. So Pine Bluff, I wouldn't say there is any major tornadic potential at the moment, but you definitely could see some gusty winds kind of surging through in about, I'd say, 15 minutes. Actually, let's go ahead and get some storm motions, and we'll place a track here. So Pine Bluff, at most 15 minutes, but you can definitely see less than that. I'd say within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Let me get this epic pen out here. And then Atheimer, you guys are already being impacted by some scattered showers, but you guys could definitely be impacted within the next 10 to 15 minutes with actual rain and gusty winds. That's probably the severe weather, or the severe part of the actual storm in itself. So you could see the severe weather characteristics in about 10 to 15 minutes per se. And then further on into Wabaseka, I should say. Jeez, I'm rusty with my pronunciations today. You guys could see it in about 15, maybe even less than that, because you're actually up into the parts of the line in itself. So that's something to keep in mind with that. Let's move further up north to north of Memphis. There is a severe thunderstorm warning for Crittenden, Mississippi, Poinsett, Lauderdale, Shelby, and Tipton counties, and that'll be in effect until 6:15 p.m. Central Daylight Time for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So if we take a look at the radar here, all these pinks and purples do indicate higher amounts of precipitation, and in this case, it indicates hail. So you can definitely see some hail in some of these areas, especially east of the I-55 region. So Joyner, Bassett, Wilson, Gilt Edge, all those areas in and around the border of Tennessee and Arkansas. And then if you live into places like Brighton and Atoka, or anywhere along the United States Route 51 area, you guys could be experiencing some of these conditions like gusty winds and maybe even some quarter-sized hail. I'd say let's get our storm track here, and we'll be able to see for ourselves. And about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even a little less to that if you're north of Brighton, but still one of those things where you're going to want to keep in mind as it continues to get closer and closer into your general vicinity. If we take a look at the maximum expected hail size, you can actually see all these little dots, these squares indicate that there actually is a specific amounts of hail in the areas in and around the Mississippi River. You can see that it actually is has some orange rectangles and squares, and that indicates over an inch of hail that could be within these vicinities. Now, maximum expected hail size is kind of misinterpreted sometimes. So to basically simplify it for you all, this is what is the name entails. It is the maximum expected hail size. It's not what you could get, like on a level playing field. It's what could be the maximum amount of size of hail that you could get. So don't think that just because I say there's 1.25 inch sized hail in this general vicinity, don't think that it means that you actually are getting that size. It could be a lot less, but it could also be up to that amount. So something to keep in mind if you live in those areas. But the areas that are experiencing some things that aren't near the Mississippi River, a place like Terrell, you guys are experiencing up and around 1 inch size hail, or could be experiencing. And that's something to keep in mind too, because I was mentioning before, hail does do damage, especially over 1 inch and maybe even to 2 inches. So you really want to continue to monitor that as that continues to move over through. Definitely stay indoors. 100% do not want to go outside and get pelted with hail. I've had that happen before. It's not fun. and it won't be fun for you either if you are outside. So stay indoors, please. Let's take a look at the velocities. We can definitely see there is a lot of gusty winds here. I'll pull out the control here, and you can actually see that. Let's take the marker, actually. There you go. So the marker's been removed. You can see some wind gusts and upwards, well, just winds, sustained winds in general, around 50 miles per hour. You can see 49 miles per hour here, but some of these gusts could be double that in some instances. But to be safe, most gusts are mainly just 10 miles per hour above the regular winds, maybe even 15 to 20. So some in these instances, you could see some wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, just like what the warning says. So if you live near Munford, Atoka, Brighton, anywhere along the United States Route 51 areas, you guys could experience some severe winds within your vicinity. I'm going to look at the wider scale here, and there isn't really a whole lot of storms really materializing into tornadic threats. But I do want to take a look here. What these little squigglies are is this is the satellite and the RAP model, basically looking down at the storm and telling me what the conditions are in those areas. So if you hear me say the words like CAPE, or convective available potential energy, which basically just tells you what how much energy is in the atmosphere. You hear me say shear, which is just basically winds with height. So depending upon where it is, can determine what you have within a specific storm. This will tell me what those are, and it will also tell me the probability of severe characteristics. For instance, if you look at the top of the rectangle here, you can see prob hail, prob wind, and prob tornadoes. You can see at the middle, the prob wind has a 63% chance of being severe, which is above half, and which definitely warrants a warning right there, especially since you can also see, from the base velocity that you have some in upwards of 40 to maybe even 45 miles per hour. So you could see some gusts that could go over that and could definitely knock over trees and power lines. So that's basically what these little squigglies are. If I ever look over it, you'll be able to know that I'm just looking at different amounts of CAPE and shear. So for instance, most unstable CAPE, it just basically takes a large sum of the CAPE in that, at all heights. If we were to drop a pin at a specific spot and to measure from the ground up, tells us how much energy is in that specific spot. And in this case, it is 1,587 joules per kilogram. So there is decent amounts of CAPE this high up in the mainland. So that's something to keep in mind. Is this GR Earth? Negative. This is GR2 Analyst. I just put a couple place files over it, and it looks pretty nice in my honest opinion. I also have some of these plots, so that tells me live data of whatever. So for instance, right in front of this line, it's 69 degrees Fahrenheit as the temperature, and the dew point is 66. So, you can see the usefulness of that as well within GR2 Analyst here. But there isn't really a whole lot of other areas besides the areas that are continuously getting heavy amounts of flooding. I'll actually go over here into radar scope, show you all this massive line right here. You can see this massive line of storms. You can even see some have lightning, but just massive area of water, just storms in general that are just dumping large amounts of water, which is the reason why you do have these flash flood warnings that are in effect for quite a long period, just long periods of time. Some expired around midnight, others in 3 hours, but still one of those things where there is the opportunity for you to have conditions that could be flooded. People are telling me that there is a severe weather watch that has been, or a severe thunderstorm watch that has been issued. And so I do want to take a look at that and be able to tell you, well, yep, there it is. So the severe thunderstorm watch has been issued for the Texarkana area, which is pretty bonkers in itself. The probability for tornadoes is 20 and 5, but look at this. The hail, 60% chance of you having 10 or more severe hail events, so some areas could get an inch, and then probability of 1 or more hailstones greater than 2 inches, still 60%. So it's one of those things to where you're going to get those supercells, but because you're not so far north, you're not really getting the massive tornado risk compared to some other areas. Mainly because the wind shear is just greater the further you go north at this instance. So it's one of those things to where you're going to want to continue to keep in mind as it continues to move through. Let me just update my my scroll text at the bottom so that I can be able to just have that go through. And if people just want to take a look at that, then that would be bonkers. I just want to update that. There we go. Get that going. Comma. Get a couple periods going. Doot. So let's go through here. And you can actually see the what the text says here as I continue to update it. But for the majority of the Texarkana area, southwest Arkansas, southeast Oklahoma, northeast Texas, look over the probabilities just so because you guys didn't really exactly see them. 20 and 5 for tornadoes, so 20% chance for 2 or more tornadoes, 5% chance for 1 or more strong tornadoes, which isn't 0. All right, I will say that just because this is a severe thunderstorm warning doesn't mean it isn't, you know, exactly 0. So something to keep in mind with that. I'm a trucker and in Smyrna, Tennessee, near Nashville. How are we looking for tonight? Staying here at the truck stop. Yep, no problem. So for as I continue to update the thing, I'll look over for Tennessee, Smyrna. All right, so Smyrna, south and east of Nashville. So for right now, you guys are pretty kind of, you know, chill. There's not really a lot of storms in your vicinity. You might have cloudy skies, but it still isn't exactly chilling out. This is the wrong watch. Is there another one? If there's another one, then that's pretty bonkers. But later tonight, all right, later tonight at around the midnight hours, maybe a little earlier than that. I'll say earlier than that, mainly because I think that this is going to move by a whole lot quicker. So around 11 to 11:30 into the 12 o'clock midnight hours, you guys could see some gusty winds, and I mean gusty winds, that could move across the Nashville vicinity into Smyrna. So that's definitely something to keep in mind if you were to parallel the wind with your truck, because I know if the wind hits the truck on a specific side, it could tip over, and that's definitely something that I'm pretty sure you do not want to deal with. It's a whole hassle getting the tractor trailer back up. So around, I'll say, the late evening into overnight hours, from, I'll give a time frame of 10:30 to midnight, that's when you guys could expect some gusty winds roll through, and you might even see some flash flooding. But I'm assuming you're going to stay on the interstates, and typically the interstates down there are relatively clear, so that it'll be wet, it'll be slippery, but it'll be more gusty than anything. So people have been saying that there is rotation in East Texas. I do want to take a look at that with my Shreveport radar here on GR2 Analyst, and as that continues to load, I'll configure this real quickly, because as I said, I'm going to want to update this for you all. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so take a look at this. There's all sorts of popcorn cells here that I've been mentioning that are out in front of the line. Here's the line right here, and here's some of the cells out in front that could get some rotation and develop tornadic signatures. So I'm assuming this one's going to be the one that has the rotation, and indeed it does. Just by looking at it, I knew exactly that it could have rotation. You can see the classic curling signature that people would typically look for in tornadic cells. So the outflow is wrapping around here. The inflow, where there isn't really a lot of rain, that's kind of seeping into the curl. Right in the middle, right around here, is where the rotation would be. And if we take a look at the base velocity, it's a little lagging behind, but you can definitely see that the reds are moving away from the radar. The radar is over here where my R is. It's a bit further out, but you get the point. It's in that direction. The greens are moving towards, and right in the middle, just to the north and east of Smithland, is where the rotation would be. So if you live near Vivian in Louisiana, anywhere along the State Route 1 areas in Louisiana, and maybe even into, if this continues to ramp up, into the United States Route 71 areas near Austin and Mira and Ida, you guys need to definitely watch out, and I would even recommend go indoors as this heads into your general vicinity. So something to keep in mind. We'll have Shreveport, or at least Shreveport, I am positive, is monitoring that situation as it continues to move through. I want to take a look at the Echotops. So the Echotops is a nice little product that I like to look at to tell me how tall these storms are when it starts to rain. And in this case, some of these situations, it goes up to 32,000 feet, and others, in the oranges here, you can see it goes up to 41,000 feet. So these are quite tall storms for this type of this time of year. Usually you would have it into the lower 30s, like in some of these other storms near Gray, but then others you can have some that just blow up and end up in the 40s, and that's definitely something that we're going to want to keep a close eye on, especially with that severe thunderstorm warning that could, well, that's telling us that there could be some hail amounts into the 2-inch region. So something to keep in mind with that. Let's see. So before I got sidetracked, I did want to do this. I'm almost done with this, guys. Almost done. There we go. File, save, boom, we got it. I helped you a few months ago in Pace. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I remember that. That's I remember that. Yeah. No, my pleasure, honestly. So, look at the new watch. So, yeah, I gotta take a look at this new watch because it apparently got issued. And I got the wrong one. Current watches. Oh, yeah, there's 2 of them, actually. So, no, it's just one. It just looks weird. Which means I'll have to put another one in. Great. So severe thunderstorm watch. Again, southwest Arkansas, northwest Louisiana, northeast Texas. But the probabilities are the same, except the hail drops off. So a bit further along the line, it's not exactly, you know, as severe as it could be, but still one of those things to where the probability of, you know, all the characteristics combined still warrant a severe thunderstorm watch. So that's something to keep in mind if you live in those areas, and you definitely want to monitor the National Weather Service as these storms continue to move into your general vicinities, I should say. So yeah, I gotta put this back over here. I gotta put another one up. That's fun. Gotta go through the same exact thing. You know what? Honestly, I'll just put it up later, because I do want to take a look back at the radar here. There isn't really a whole lot of storms, but there is a new severe thunderstorm warning, or at least not exactly new per se, but a severe thunderstorm warning here for Dixon, Houston, and Montgomery counties, and that'll be in effect until 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, mainly for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And I did mention before, earlier in the stream, that as you go further north, you typically will start to see more of a gusty wind or gusty wind threat, and you still have that tornado threat, but as you go further north, it's more of a gusty wind threat. As you go further south, it's more of a hail threat. So something to keep in mind with that. But you can definitely see this line kind of surge through here. I'll actually play the radar for you all here, and you can see how this thing just kind of moves on through. You have a nice line of storms that are starting to kind of push through, and you might also see these kind of arcing characteristics here, which could indicate that this thing could be trying to rotate. And actually, indeed, it does look like there is a little bit of rotation here. So that is something to keep in mind with all of this. I'll put on the storm relative velocities, and let's see, so the radar is up there, so that actually does check out. The greens are moving towards the radar, the reds are moving away, and right in the middle is a little bit of rotation, just heading off towards the Sladen areas, just to the south of Erin. So if you live along the State Route 49 area in Tennessee, near Sladen, near Van Leer, just to the south of Cumberland City, you guys need to monitor the storm as if you're already in a tornado warning, or you're in a severe thunderstorm warning already, so you should be indoors. But I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes tornado warned. Actually, let's go ahead and get the timing out for you all here. So Sladen, you could be impacted within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Further out, if you live along State Route 48 north of Cumberland Furnace, you guys could be impacted in the next 15 to 20 minutes. And then as it continues to move on through, you could see Interstate 24 near Pleasant View and Coopertown within the next 30 to 35 minutes. What county? This is Dixon, Houston, and Montgomery counties, and this will be in effect until 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, this is a severe thunderstorm warning, but it is something to keep in mind. And I do want to mention this real quickly, not as if I was the only one to, monitor this. The National Weather Service has indeed noticed that there is rotation, and they have put in this little tornado possible tag at the bottom. So something to keep in mind as this continues to push off, that there could be a chance of tornadic conditions within this severe thunderstorm warning. So something that we will definitely monitor as this continues to move on through. I'm going to close out GR2 Analyst real quickly, and I'm going to pull up a couple of tabs here. So first one's going to be here, which is going to be in that general vicinity, and the second one is going to be down. Someone knocking on my door?
Yeah, I got potatoes left.
I don't know why.
Don't bother.
Appreciate it. I guess I'm not alone. But yeah, the other one's gonna be in Arkansas. I'm actually gonna put it on this storm here that's crossing into Louisiana. So we got a tornado warning. So I don't know where the tornado warning is. I was gonna pull up IEM bot, but So let's figure out where this tornado warning is, shall we? All bots talk. And there's the tornado warning. It's for this storm that I was looking at. So tornado warning for Lafayette. Actually, hold up. They have parishes over there. So let me backtrack real quickly. Tornado warning for Miller, Lafayette, and Marion counties. As well as Cass County and Caddo and Bossier Parish. That'll be in effect until 6:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can definitely see the rotation here. It's actually increased. You can see the inbound velocities are 28 miles per hour. The outbound velocities is 47 miles per hour. So if we get a delta velocity here, we can see it's around 75 miles per hour, which could indicate that there is a good indication that this could be tornadic relatively soon. Usually some of these will have weaker rotation and it won't produce, but this one right here has the opportunity to produce a tornado, and that's the reason why the National Weather Service has given this a tornado warning. So if you live in any of these areas, I mentioned near Vivian and near Rodessa along, geez, give me a second. I gotta do the storm motion from warning again. Along State Route 1 in Louisiana, you guys need to go ahead and monitor this situation. Get underground or get into the lowest innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet with no windows, so you can put as many walls between yourself and the tornadic rotation as possible, or maybe even the tornado. The timing here, if you live along State Route 1, it'd be around 10 to 15 minutes. Further into Ida and Mira, that'd be around 20 to 30 minutes. And it'll be around the border of Louisiana and Arkansas in about 30 to 35 minutes. So something to definitely keep in mind as this continues to move on through. And you definitely want to be indoors. As I said, innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet, or underground. So definitely something to keep in mind there. I want to take a look at the spectrum width, and there is a bit of a dip here, which means that the velocities are kind of tightening together, and that may form a bit of a lowering, which could indicate that a tornado could spawn soon, but it's not exactly there completely, and there might actually be, I don't know what this is. That looks like an anomaly, and it does look like it is an anomaly, mainly because if I circle this area, the correlation coefficient looks at these storms, and when they send the radar beam out into the storm, it reflects back the density of molecules in the air. So typically whenever you see debris being lofted up, it'll show a lower correlation coefficient, and whenever you see rain, mainly because it's the smaller rain particles that are quite small compared to debris, it tends to be a higher correlation coefficient. So usually, and the other thing too is if it's air, it'll tend to be lower correlation coefficient, or maybe not even anything in some of these instances. But still something to keep in mind as this continues to move on through, and we are definitely going to want to continue to monitor this storm as it heads further into the parishes of Louisiana. So now it's starting to cross over the border, and as I mentioned, if you live along State Route 1, you guys should be underground right now, if not innermost part of your building, or the lowest innermost part of your building. Bathroom or closet is fine, and just make sure you stay safe. If you live along the United States Route 71, you should also be in your safe space, but you should also grab some protective equipment. So that's something to keep in mind with that. Let's see. Let's enable audio alerts and turn down the sound. That way, if anything new comes along, I'll be able to see something. But yeah, as I said, the tornado warning here, that's now heading into Louisiana. You guys are definitely going to want to monitor all of this. Actually, I got an idea. This. What I'm doing right now is I'm actually separating it so that's I'm looking at specific National Weather Service offices rather than just everything in general. Did you miss something? Anything near Nashville? Not at the moment. Nashville is in the clear, but people further south into Louisiana, they are not, especially the ones along State Route 1. You guys should be underground right now, or the innermost part of your building. There is no debris signature that I see at the moment, but the spectrum width has indeed increased, and it does seem to be primed to produce a tornado soon. So And that's mainly because you see the lowering here. Once it gets into the yellows, or there's more yellow pixels, it means that the velocity is kind of tightening, and you could have a lowering that could indicate funnel or maybe even a tornado moving on through. So something to keep in mind. Azer1121, what's up? Welcome to the stream. It's been a long time no see. But definitely some really nice spectrum width here indicated. If we take a look at the normalized rotation, we don't really take a look at the normalized rotation here on this channel a whole lot, mainly because I love to dissect the storm a little bit more, and the normalized rotation is just basically a sum of a bunch of things. But you can see that the normalized rotation is above a 1, which could indicate a stronger tornado. Fan Ryan Adams, what's up? Welcome to the stream. It's probably on the ground. I would say so too, honestly. The inbound velocities is 53.7. The outbound is 23.5. Or at least I think it's 23.5. Hold up. Let's place a marker there. Yeah, 23.5, 57. That's a 67 knot delta velocity, which is around 75 miles per hour. So that's something to keep in mind there. D-Shiv, what's up? Puffball64, what's up? So definitely a dangerous situation that's heading towards State Route 1. Definitely a dangerous situation. Let's see. Is it this one or is it the other one? I don't exactly know. It is that one. Okay, that's good. Fascinated by the tornadoes, but scared at the same time. Yeah, tornadoes is definitely something that you do not want to take lightly and view from afar. You're definitely going to want to go away from it too, because if you try and get any close to it, you could get you could be surprised by not only the power but the raw strength and be overtaken by one. So that's definitely something you're going to want to keep in mind with all of this. The one behind it has rotation. Yeah, I was looking at that too. It doesn't look like it has as strong of rotation as it had before, but it still has some decent rotation. So some of these areas like gray, I would say you need to continue to monitor that, but otherwise not really that big of a tornado risk at the moment. But still, this tornado warning, the velocities have died down. I will say that much, but that does not mean that it isn't on the ground. It could very well be on the ground. And as long as the tornado warning is up, we can still anticipate that you could expect tornadic conditions if you live in these areas. So as I mentioned before, State Route 1, you need to be underground or innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet. Where is this? This is in northwestern Louisiana, north of Vivian, south of Rodessa. So if you know anyone who lives in those areas, especially along State Route 1, you need to monitor this situation. Is there small rotation just to the north of it too? There is a little teeny bit, but this storm is kind of like a little rinky-dink, if you know what I mean. So there is rotation, but it doesn't seem to, or at least I don't anticipate it to do a whole lot, mainly because there's a lot of rain out in front of it that's kind of cooling the air down, and storms kind of need warm air in order to sustain, which is the reason why you see how this storm is kind of still sustaining with all this like clear air out in front of it. And that's mainly because all the warm moist air is moving, or a technical term, weather term here, advecting towards it to provide it the energy that it needs. Let's see, not populated, no indication of debris. Yeah, and that's the thing too. We wouldn't be able to know if there is any or a lot of debris unless if it pulls trees. But it doesn't seem to be strong enough to do that, or at least based off of radar. But we all know that things could be different on the ground, and that's something that the National Weather Service will have to take a look at after this severe weather event is all said and done and assessed further. But still something to keep in mind as this continues to move through, that if you do live in these areas, you're in a tornado warning and that you need to seek shelter, regardless of what it's doing on radar. Rotation is tightening up. It kind of is, or at least it's not officially on my screen. What I do see here, though, what I do see is I see this kind of outflow boundary here that's starting to protrude up. The velocities in itself isn't exactly, the best, I would say, but you do see a nice little gust front that's pushing off of this outflow boundary, and this is a typical supercell that could produce a tornado moving along the line here. I do want to take a look at the some of the storms in these other areas. So I did mention that there was a severe thunderstorm warning in Tennessee that could have rotation on it. Right now it looks pretty linear in my honest opinion, mainly because what I would typically look for gusty winds and straight line winds is for it to be this kind of long line. It's not like, if I go back to this storm here, it's not like where, it's not like this storm where you have this kind of line that forms where you have reds on this side, greens on this side, and it's kind of like at an angle, or not really an angle. It's just like side by side with each other, and then you can kind of see how it curls off at the top and bottom. But with the other storms up to the north in Tennessee, you can kind of see that there could be a little bit, but it is very, very linear. And that kind of indicates that it's more or less a gusty wind threat more than a tornado threat. So that is the good news there if you live north of Cumberland Furnace. Tennessee in general, if we zoom out here, you can see that there is these storms that are kind of pretty scattered across the board here. There is actually a storm that went over Nashville, a couple other storms that went south of that, but none of them are really severe. I would say there would be more or less a severe risk along the line, the actual line. So areas near Camden, north of Interstate 40, along United States Route 70, especially, as I said, around Camden. You could see some gusty winds in and around those areas. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a severe thunderstorm warning that got issued there. Someone said a possible CC. That definitely could be CC. That definitely could be CC. ZDR doesn't exactly say it is, and KDP doesn't. Ooh, hold up. Yeah, I think that's CC. I think that was definitely a correlation coefficient to where debris was lofted in the air. So we definitely could have had a tornado that actually produced. And as I mentioned, it happened, or was I... Jeez, I'm jumbling over my words. I'm having a whale of a time. I mentioned before that State Route 1 needed to be in their safe space, whether it was underground or the innermost part of their building, and the debris actually got lofted up in and around the State Route 1 area. So, yeah, I hope to God that there were people, if there were people here, there actually are buildings in and around here. It does seem like there's actually a residential area. So I was praying that there was some people, if they were on my stream, that they should be underground or the innermost part of their building. I hope they are safe, and if there was damage in and around these areas, I hope that they're all right. They're not impacted in any major sort of way, and I hope that they get help if there is any major damage. But north of Vivian, there does seem that there was a little bit of a debris signature. So something to keep in mind with all of that we could have had a tornado within the storm. And that also means too that if you live in Myra, this storm has produced a tornado. So that gives you all the more reason, whether this thing looks bad or not on radar, to go underground or get into your innermost part of your building. Let me repeat, this thing has a history of creating tornadic conditions. So it should give you a reason as to why you should be either underground or your innermost part of your building. This isn't exactly fear mongering, because it looked like it produced a tornado. You had the debris here and you had the winds to prove it. It looked like this thing did. So for future reference, to keep this in mind, if you live along State Route 71 from Mira to Ida, you should be in your safe space. And I told you before, I said you had time, you can get helmets, pillows, or whatever. Best case scenario right there if you could. Mainly because that way you're more than protected. You're in all sorts of the you're in the right place at the right time. Let's see, we're gonna be leaving Nashville, driving on the 40 west towards Texas. Yeah, so you're gonna be experiencing some of those gusty winds, but the good news is that it'll kind of hit you from your 11 o'clock position, so that when you're driving west towards Texas, it'll kind of just be hitting you a little bit sideways, but not extremely sideways. Can you look west of London, Kentucky, and see if there's any rotation? Yeah, sure. Let me go over here real quickly. And let's see. So London, Kentucky. London, Kentucky. This is all the way over south of Lexington. So there's London. So it's not exactly over you guys yet. Give it time. Later tonight it definitely will be. You'll get more of a gusty wind threat in my honest opinion, but you could see some tornadic something tornadic as it moves on through. Let's see. I do want to take a look back at this tornado warning again, and see what the update is. And oh, so that's interesting. So one thing I do want to point out real quickly is this thing has kind of curled a bit more, and the winds are trying to resurge around the outflow. Now, it still looks pretty weak, but the inflow winds are actually back to its normal status like it was before, heading towards Vivian. So this thing could be recycling. It has the potential to do so. So that's something to keep in mind, too, as it moves towards Mira. But I'd say within the next few minutes, we should have our answer as to whether or not this thing can sustain or not. But it looks like it's trying to recycle, and it could get into a position where it could produce a tornado. So I would say no one in the tornado warning except for people near Rodessa and Vivian. You're safe. I would say anyone near Kibla, you should be out of the risk. It should be passing to your south, so you should be safe and out of the risk. Ida, I'm not saying that you're out of the risk just yet. I think that you should definitely still stay indoors. And Mira, you are in the crosshairs. You should be underground. You should be in your lowest innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet. I want to take a look at the spectrum width again. It looks like it's starting to try and condense. I'll take a look at the past frames here. You can see how it's pretty gray across the board, except for this little area down here, but that's not exactly anything that has to do with tornadoes. You can see how this area, this large patch of blue, is starting to indicate that velocities are trying to tighten up and consolidate. So something to keep in mind with all that. Let's see. Looks like there's another supercell southwest of the tornado warning. Yeah, this one I was mentioning before, or at least someone mentioned before, and I took a look at it briefly. It hasn't really changed a whole lot. It's pretty linear, but it definitely looks like there could be, it could turn into something, especially since you can see how it has this general curl into the actual supercell. So something to keep in mind with this too, and the environment around here is pretty rich as well. The most unstable cape or convective available potential energy is around 1,750 joules per kilogram, which is not bad for a day like today at this time of year. So something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through, that we'll just have to watch as time goes on. Now I did mention before, I said that there should be a nice risk, or not exactly nice because flooding isn't really nice. There should be a interesting risk for flooding across the board. Could be historic in some areas, could be, but it just depends upon the runoff and where that's consolidated specifically. But yeah, we'll have to see as it continues to move on through. SPC. Someone said there is a new mesoscale discussion, and it's about Tornado Watch 13. A severe weather threat for Tornado Watch 13 continues. Let's pull this over real quickly. A damaging wind threat will continue for a few more hours within the Tornado Watch 13. Storms have struggled to produce much wind damage up to this point. As a boundary layer cools, the favorable window for damaging wind will diminish within a few hours. The most organized cluster of storms is currently north of Memphis, but a sagging outflow boundary from earlier convection continues to rush ahead of this convection and has likely resulted in it remaining somewhat elevated, limiting the overall threat, which is the good news here. Very much so good news. Some threat will remain, especially south of this outflow boundary, where storms will likely be more surface-based and have a better chance of producing damaging winds. Another area of favorable conditions exists in north-central Tennessee. A supercell west of Nashville has exhibited consistent low to mid-level rotation. Let's see. Let's just kind of skim through here. Additional convection to the southwest and more discrete cells trying to develop may pose a threat for damaging wind or a tornado or two in the next 1 to 2 hours. Yeah, so that's basically the area of the 5%. Let's take a look at the convective outlook again. And here's the 5%. As I said, it stretches from all the way down to Texarkana into the Nashville area in southern Kentucky. And I did mention before that my hot zone was kind of here, this Texarkana vicinity. Now the box it's in and around the box per se, but that's kind of where I have my idea as to where the worst conditions could be. And indeed, there's already a tornado warning in and around that vicinity. So definitely something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through, that we're not exactly over with the risk. It should continue for the next couple of hours, especially down south. But they were talking about how the gusty winds could increase, but for the much northern parts of the line of storms, it does seem to be not as bad as they thought. Getting a bit windy in Smyrna, Tennessee, a little bit of rain. Yeah, so you got these couple of storms that are just moving on through, and it's really kind of just oof. You're in southeast Memphis, about to have some fun. Yeah, actually, let's take a look at Memphis real quickly. I haven't really touched Memphis a whole lot, but they are in a severe thunderstorm warning. So it's definitely something worth talking about. And we can definitely see here that Memphis is already in the storm in itself, but the areas north of Memphis and east of it, they are in for a fun time here. You can actually see a little bit of rain here. This is actually an outflow boundary from this storm up here. So there could be a little bit of rotation in this line as well, but it doesn't seem to be all too intense. But a lot of these gusty winds, this line, massive line right here, kind of just surging on through. And you can definitely experience some wind gusts in upwards of 50 to maybe even 60 miles per hour, which is definitely not something that people should look out for. Well, should want, I should say. People should definitely look out for, but one of those things where it's not a fun time. Let's see. I want to take a look at this this severe thunderstorm warning into more in depth. Because this thing looks really interesting. You can see the satellite says that it has a 59% chance of being a tornado too. It already has a 69% chance of winds. And it also, according to GR2, has a meso on it. Meso signature. Which you can definitely see as it goes higher up. You can definitely see as it goes higher up. So that's something to keep in mind. Maximum expected hail size, though, I have to say, 2¼ inches of hail that is approaching Pleasant View. Let's take a look here, and I'll be able to show you all a bit more in depth. Look at this. Look at this storm. It's already showing some tornadic conditions at the surface, at least. But if you take a look a bit higher, you can see reds move away, greens and blues moving towards. Right in the middle is where the rotation would be. And if people thought that I was joking about the hail, look at the pink right here. According to this indicator on the side, pink means 2 inches. You can also see a little triangle here with the number 2. And this says 2.35. I was being generous in saying it was 2¼ The maximum expected, keyword expected, is over 2¼ inches. That's hail. That's larger. That's what, golf ball size hail? Isn't that what that is? What do they have officially for the warning? They said penny-sized hail. But according to this, it says around 2 inches. So that's something to keep in mind there. That this storm can produce hail no matter what size. So stay indoors, especially if you're along Interstate 24. And if you're driving along Interstate 24, you definitely should keep in mind about the storm, especially since some of the winds can go up to 60 miles per hour, maybe even higher. Some of the wind gusts. I'm looking at the echo tops too. I mentioned before, this tells me how tall these storms are. And for this one, sheesh, 47,000 feet up in the sky. That's pretty tall. That's really tall, actually, especially for this time of year. So, something to keep in mind with that. New severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued out here for Tipton, Fayette, Haywood, and Shelby counties in Tennessee. 60 mile per hour wind gusts, quarter-size hail. That'll be in effect until 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So Arlington, Oakland, Somerville, Braden, anywhere along Interstate 40, you guys need to go ahead and kind of monitor the system. Seems like the tornado threat hasn't materialized today. It materialized down south. Down south, it's looking pretty bonkers. KLCS tornadoes are still possible. Yeah, anything along the line really is possible still. So, I do want to take a look. Actually, I'll take a look at the meso-analysis. We'll take a look at the deep south first. We'll be able to see. First off, we gotta look at the doom casting. Alright, so the violent tornado parameter isn't too high. But there is definitely the opportunity for there to be some things tornadic. Bulk shear, that is the key word there. Pretty intense bulk shear, especially since some gets up into the 70 knots vicinity, others into the mid to upper 50s. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Christian Barnes, I've been doing pretty good. How about yourself? Yeesh. Yeah, so this little storm here actually is starting to kind of materialize a little bit. It seems as if this storm right here, though, the tornadic one that just went through Mira and Ida, it's still there. Don't get me wrong, it's still there, but the outflow boundary, this little tail here on the storm, it seems to be kind of jutting out in front of the rotation in itself. It seems to be kind of tearing the storm apart, mainly because you can see how the main downdraft or all the rain has kind of, you know, pushed through right here. And the outflow boundary in the rotation is really far out in front of the storm. So it may be a bit discombobulated, to say the least. But that's the good news there. Yeah, the storm north of Oil City looking pretty interesting now. It's a bit smaller, albeit, but you definitely still have that rotation there. Take a look at that. Inflow is unimpeded. Outflow with all the rain wrapping around, and right in the middle is where you would want to look for. So, something to keep in mind with all that. If you guys are new to this stream, or new to my channel in general, please hit the like button and subscribe. Share with friends and family, since I'm going to be streaming for probably another hour and a half, especially if you know anyone who lives in these areas, so that I could tell them accurate weather data live. You think any thunderstorms will hit central Ohio overnight? Let's take a look at the models. When in doubt, look at the models. I didn't really think, because it was going to be that far up north, I should say. But you definitely could see some passing showers, some passing thunderstorms in general. But nothing too intense, to be completely honest with you. Nope, been here since 2019. Ah, so you're an OG. You're an original. Good for you all. Good for you. Appreciate that, guys. Yeah, this definitely does seem to be a bit more localized into my hot zone, which I gotta admit, alright, I didn't exactly think that it would be localized just to my hot zone, because I didn't look at the temperatures out in advance, but it looks pretty localized just to my hot zone. So I don't want to say I'm right or anything, but I'm right. I'm just kidding. Oh boy. What do you think about Central Alabama? So Central Alabama for today, I believe, is out of the risk. However, tomorrow, you guys could definitely see, like tomorrow morning, you guys could definitely see some gusty winds. If we take a look at the models here, 12Z, 13Z. 13Z is 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. So at around these areas, around this time, you guys could see a line of storms passing through. Some could be gusty, there could be some that are severe as well, but it's definitely one of those things to where you should pay attention to it, but don't be surprised if it comes through. And don't be surprised if it's severe either. Let's see. I want to look up something real quickly, just real quickly. You're from Fultondale. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. That's sheesh. That storm was crazy. I'm glad you're okay. I That was just pretty crazy. See the new mezzo discussion? Yeah, I was talking about how there wasn't really that much um tornadic per se activity. It was going to be more of a gusty wind threat up north. But down south it still seems to be pretty tornadic. Sorry, I went bowling. That's fine. Let's be honest. Well, let's be real here, alright? I'm not gonna try and control your lives. I'm just going to try and help influence them by telling you the weather. Because it, it'd be easier if I told you what was happening rather than, you know, you trying to find it yourself. And I'm not saying that's, you know, you guys can't do it. But it'd be a whole lot easier if someone was already on top of it and they knew what was going on and around and everything, so that you wouldn't have to look so much for the answers you need. Sketchy cell in Albany, Kentucky using KOHX radar. Let me take a look at that real quickly. Morgan was streaming that. What was he streaming? Was he streaming earlier on today? I think he was, actually. Morgan's a legend, I have to say. I love Morgan. He's been going through a lot of stuff lately, but I love Morgan. Let's see. So KOHX radar. Gotta let it load a little bit. There we go. Albany, Kentucky. Oh, it's over here. Yeah, it does look pretty sketchy. There is a little bit of rotation. Now, we are looking up 7,000 feet up in the sky. So let's be honest here. It's looking up pretty high. Typically, we'd want to look up at around 2,000, 3,000 feet up above the ground. We're looking up 7,000. So, it's pretty bonkers. Heard some people are thinking this tornado season will be like 2011. I can't really say for certain, honestly. Especially since that's such a bold claim with how bad 2011 was. You can't exactly say that without having a lot of evidence to back it up. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone, well, unfortunately and or fortunately, no one really does. So, looks like we might not see severe weather for another 2 weeks. Yeah, it does seem like it, honestly. Yeah, long time no see, Chixp. Hey, there's a new tornado warning. Jeesh. Dixon and Humphreys. I was just looking at the storm like, dude, this thing looks kind of sketchy. And yeah, there it is. So, tornado warning for Dixon and Humphreys County. That'll be in effect until 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can take a look at the rotation here. And it looks pretty interesting. I'll take a look. I'll bring up the storm motion. And you can see how it kind of is pretty flat right here. You can see how it curls, flat, and then curls again. And that indicates that there is a little bit of rotation in and around those areas. So if you live around Tennessee City or anywhere along United States Route 70, heading in towards Dixon and Burns, you guys need to go ahead and get into your safe space. Get underground or get into the lowest innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet with no windows, so you can put as many walls between yourself and the tornadic rotation as possible. The timing here shows that it'll be around Tennessee City in about 15 to 20 minutes, around Dixon at about 30 minutes, and further out towards White Bluff in about 40 to 45 minutes. So if you live around, as I mentioned, United States Route 70 from McEwen to Tennessee City, you guys need to go ahead and get into your safe space, underground or innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet. The velocities, yeah, as I mentioned, look actually decent. The spectrum width shows that there is a bit of a lowering. The velocities are kind of condensing, but still something to keep in mind. How's Arkansas doing specifically in the Conway area? Conway, if I remember correctly, is northern part. Conway, Arkansas. Yeah, northern part of Little Rock, I should say. They're kind of out of the risk a little bit. Or at least they're kind of done for the most part right now. But they could see some scattered storms sooner or later. As a matter of fact, there's actually a scattered storm moving through your area right now. But still something to keep in mind with all that. Leaving Memphis, heading to Conway. Yes, so you're going through all those scattered storms. But so as I mentioned before, the storm is this tornadic storm right here that's heading through into the Tennessee City area, into the Dixon areas. You guys need to go ahead and just get into your safe space now, because this did look pretty interesting on radar just a few seconds ago, and it still could go back into its old characteristic of it being really tornadic. So really something to keep in mind as this continues to move on through into the evening. Why is it so windy here in Memphis? That is mainly because, and I'll switch over to Memphis real quickly. It's mainly because you have a line of storms that are moving through your area. This is an entire line of storms that could produce gusty winds in upwards of 50 miles per hour, maybe even higher, especially in the severe thunderstorm warning that expires in 8 minutes. But it's for Tipton, Fayette, Haywood, and Shelby counties. That'll be in effect until 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for 60 mile per hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. So if you live in these general vicinities, you could see wind gusts up to, keyword up to, 50 mile per hour winds. And you can see sustained winds if we look at the super relative velocity. Well, super res velocity. Storm relative actually is probably better in this situation. Yeah, they are. Jeez, it's not loading for me. There we go. Yeah, up to the 20s. There's some even in the 40s too, if you are right to the south of Lakeland and to the north of Germantown or Germantown. So that's something to keep in mind with all of that. That if you live in those areas, you could definitely see some gusty winds across the board over there. Let's go back over to the... can you look at the storm just to the south of Aaron, Tennessee? Aaron is... Let me take a look at that over here. That's not what I wanted to do. Can you look at the notch a little bit north of the tornado warning? Yeah, I'll take a look at that in a second too. Aaron, Tennessee. That's not what I wanted. Is right along the border. Well, actually not along the border. It's kind of like... Oh, it's like in between Clarksville and Jackson. So let's see. Where's Clarksville? Clarksville's over here. Aaron's over here. Okay, so it's kind of like... You're talking about the one near McEwen. Which, there is a little bit of rotation. You can see how it kind of flattens off right here. There isn't really a whole lot. It's more kind of localized towards the McEwen, or south of McEwen into the Tennessee City area. Yep, long time no see, Landon. Long time no see. Yeah, there's a lot of gusty winds in the Memphis area. ASMR typing sounds. Well, soon I'll be getting a stand for my mic. That way you guys don't have to hear the ASMR typing sounds. Or at least I don't think you can. But as I mentioned before, this tornado warning, yeah, there's definitely looking pretty interesting. A couple areas of rotation here. I want to see which one's closer. just by eyeballing it, it looks like this one's closer. KHPX. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was about to say, like, which one looks better? And then I was like, we'll use that one, and we'll see. Last year was crazy for the Midwest. Probably be even worse. Could be, possibly. ASMR typing is fun. Seems legit. Gusty outside, but it's calming a bit. Yeah, the line of storms is passing through your areas, but it's definitely still there. Definitely still churning. I see you changed your name of your YouTube channel. Yeah, I felt like it would be a whole lot better, especially for what we're going for on this channel. Enrot's nuts. Yeah. Spectrum width's pretty nuts too, especially since, you know, spectrum width looks for stronger velocities along the touching each other, and in this case you have it touching relatively, you know, it's very, very thin as to the stronger winds from going one side, stronger winds going the other, or one way, another, and there's your rotation. But that's kind of the reason why I also don't use Enrot, because Enrot's kind of meh. It uses a lot more things than it should. So, tornado warning again? Yes, sir, ma'am. It's for Dixon and Humphreys County, and it'll be in effect until 7:15 p.m. Central Standard Time. Nice name update. Thank you, Chrissy. I appreciate it. Felt like it was about time. We retired the Hockey Boy and 8 name. Well, on YouTube. On Twitch, that's what I am. Which, by the way, if I'm not streaming, and if you guys want to watch me play video games, or we just want to hang out, viewers' discretion is advised, because, you know, I'm an adult. I curse every now and then. On YouTube, I don't, because I have more respect for you all. But on Twitch, if you want to see me mess around, play all sorts of video games, go follow me. Hockey Boy and 8. But, yeah, it's pretty bonkers, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty linear still. I will say that much. And we can take a look at this plot here, and we can see the temperatures 68, dew point 64. It's all right. The conditions could be a whole lot worse, but it's still new to this channel, but I already love it. Well, I appreciate it, Olivia. Yeah, this is what we do for severe weather. We basically dissect it and make it easier for people to understand, and we also inform people as to where this weather is heading and around what time, which we probably will have to update for you all again, but that will be after the tornado warning, so that'll be something to keep in mind.
Here we go.
Skywarn Gaming 099, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, I really do. More followers. That way people can watch me do fun, weird stuff and all that. It's cool to see younger people. You're 31. Can we classify you as young though as well? Because I work at a ski lift as my other job outside of college. And it's really, you know, I kind of classify anyone under, well, anyone who doesn't have gray hair, no offense to people who have gray hair, love my papa, as kind of young. So can we really classify you as, you know, older, even though you are older than me? Can we? Let's be honest here. But yeah, I love, whenever people talk about weather, it's always, you know, an amazing community when it's live. Now, when it talks about, when they do arguing and all that stuff, that's not really all too good, but still. Yeah, why does this happen? It's bonkers weather that's moving through. You know how it is. Anything that's kind of from Tennessee down south into Alabama and Mississippi, it's really kind of just meh. You flip a coin, you pray to God that something bad doesn't happen. Check the rotation from the storm south of Franklin, Tennessee. Ooh, where the heck?
Here we go.
There it is. Jeez. Boris Boardstar, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so Franklin's over there, which is right there, and there's the little storm. Okay. Anything new with Smyrna near Nashville? So Smyrna right now is just passing through the storm. But there's a storm kind of south and west of that. So if you know anyone who's over there, they could be experiencing some gusty winds, but definitely something that people who are south of Smyrna should watch out for. It's not severe, and it's not overly tornadic, but there is a bit of rotation, and the shear is strong enough to kind of sustain that, so really something to keep in mind. But Smyrna, as of right now, you're good. Your temperature is 71, your dew points is 64. It's overcast, the visibility is fine, but the pressure is falling, which means that there could be some severe weather up and around those areas. Skywarren099, what's up? Welcome to the stream, even though you've been here for a bit. If you guys are new to the stream, by the way, and you want to help support me, please click the like button and subscribe. I really would appreciate that. Extra7, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate it. So as I said, new to the channel, subscribe, like, share with friends and family, because I'm going to be here for quite some time to discuss this event. And if you want to follow me on Twitch for whenever I play video games, as I said, viewer discretion is advised, because I do curse every now and then. I have more, as I said, I have more respect for people on YouTube. Feel free to follow me there, HockeyBoyN8. The tornado warning someone said was canceled. Let me check that. Nashville. Yep, the tornado warning has been canceled. So that's the good news here. It has been deemed weak enough to cancel, but there is still a severe thunderstorm warning, which does include 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and penny-sized hail. So that's something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through. And the storms are now starting to head closer and closer towards Nashville, which is something that people should definitely continue to monitor as this heads towards a more populous area. Do I play Forza Horizon? Not as much, but, or at least not really a whole lot. But I could, if people start requesting it, I could start doing that. Definitely could. Let's see, let's pick this up. Info on southeastern Arkansas. Yeah, we haven't really done that in a while. And then we are going to go over the models and show you all what else is moving around and stuff like that, and the timings, because that's definitely something that people are going to want to know moving forward. But southeastern Arkansas is pretty much in the clear. Southwestern, on the other hand, we did have a tornado warning with this storm. In my opinion, it was tornadic. It's not as tornadic as it once was, because it's kind of fallen apart here, but it still has the opportunity to produce damaging winds and hail, penny-sized hail more or less. And the National Weather Service also still has, confidence that this thing could possibly produce a tornado.
Here we go.
But still something to keep in mind with that. Tanner, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate it. More follows on Twitch. I appreciate that. I actually really do. A bunch of follows on Twitch. So, yeah, it's more or less just these couple of severe thunderstorm warnings that are really, they're pretty gusty in general. And then, as I mentioned before, the flash flood warnings that is going to be pretty sporadic. Um, and they will continue into the evening. That'll just kind of be in a nuisance. Starting to flood where I'm at. Yeah, the aerial flooding could start to ramp up pretty soon, so that's something to keep in mind with all this. It does have rotation, but it's relatively weak. Yeah, I noticed that as well. Which is the reason why we're gonna go straight into the timing of all of these storms, this line of storms that are just gonna kind of push on through the evening into the Ohio Valley, into the further into the deep south, early tomorrow. But you can see here, I'm gonna go into the second latest model run here. And this only goes out 18 hours, so it won't exactly be like a long run, but it'll still be, it'll still have the recent data for you all. So you can see, according to the model, this model here, it'd be a nice line of storms with some scattered storms out in front. That's what we're seeing across portions of Nashville right now, as well as further into other parts of Tennessee. Hayden, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate it. Why did I leave Discord? I didn't leave Discord. I'm just not on a whole lot. I'm working. I got a second job. But yeah, you can see this line kind of move on through. It's 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time right now. And as it moves on through, at around, I would say 11 to 10 o'clock. I'd say more 10 o'clock. That's when it could push through around the Nashville area. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. You might actually see it at around 9. So I did say earlier that this line could move through a whole lot quicker, but I didn't exactly anticipate it to move this quickly. So gusty winds could still push on through. People around Memphis and southeastern Arkansas, you guys could see it around that time too. Maybe even a little bit earlier if in southeastern Arkansas. Did I say Arkansas? I did. What is up with me today? But northern Mississippi, you guys could still see some scattered storms. And central Tennessee, you guys could move on through, push across the board with that. Let's see, your power went out again. Yeah, it's relatively flat over there, so there could be some power outages in those general vicinities, especially around Memphis, because it's been just pretty consistent for the most part. But yeah, you could still see some gusty winds from all these storms. Not really too gusty, so probably not up to severe characteristics. I would personally label that more for the areas in central Tennessee and maybe southeastern Arkansas into south central Arkansas, but all the other areas are pretty scattered, so I really don't think it will be all too much of a risk once the main line passes you. But then as it heads towards the morning, central Alabama, it'd be the early morning hours, most likely at around 5 a.m., maybe 6 a.m., maybe even earlier than that, 4 a.m., 3 a.m. Depending upon where you live, though, I would say it'd be around the 4:30 to 5 o'clock hours for you all. And then the same thing with northern Georgia, heading into the Appalachians. Miss Drea, what's up? Welcome to the stream. So that's the storms kind of pushing on through.
Here we go.
And yeah. Lawn Cake and Papples. Thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate it. I live in West Virginia, so it rains a lot. I used to live in West Virginia, fun fact. I lived up in Martinsburg. So that was pretty I can confirm it does rain. It does rain a lot. Not a lot of severe weather, but it just does rain a lot. So let's take a look at some of these severe thunderstorm warnings, because there's been a lot of action since we've last looked on radar here. And there's quite a few severe thunderstorm warnings. Mia Dena, what's up? Welcome to the stream. It's been pretty sporadic. I'm not gonna lie. There's been a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, like this one for Monroe, Allen, and Barron counties in Kentucky, which will be in effect until 7:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. That has hazards up to 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. Which most of these severe thunderstorm warnings happen to have that, but still, pretty interesting rotation, stuff like that. Gates 100. Where is that? Burkesville, Kentucky, which is where? I have to find that. So give me a second, chat, as I try and look for this. And it's all the way over here. So I'm not exactly anywhere close to it on the radar. So let's try and get a little closer. Just a little closer. So there's Burkesville. And as soon as it loads, we'll be able to see what people are buzzing about. Keyword if it loads. As soon as it loads. So there's a little bit of rotation. On both cells. There's this discrete cell that's out in front, and there's another cell that's near Burkesville. But there isn't really a whole lot here. Let me take a storm relative velocity. And we'll be able to see 21 on top of 29. That's around 50-mile-per-hour delta velocity, which isn't too strong, but it still is something that we should monitor. Especially since it has rotation. We know that for a fact. I mean, if we look on here, the radar is over here somewhere. So the greens are moving towards, the reds are moving away. This is a counterclockwise rotation that is pushing through this general vicinity. So Cundiff, Creelsboro, you guys could experience some tornadic conditions, but other than that, it's pretty tame at the moment. Let's see. So some of these areas in the severe thunderstorm warnings, I mentioned before, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. You can definitely see that on velocity. I mean, I'll show it to you all here. Some of these pixels go up to 48 miles per hour, and gusts can be higher than that. So just realize that this radar only picks up sustained winds, not gusts. Gusts could be higher, and there's already, sustained winds over around 50. So usually gusts are 10 to 15 miles per hour higher than that, maybe more, depending upon how strong the actual storm is. And that definitely fills the severe criteria. So that's definitely something to keep in mind with all that. Look near the rotation, there is some rotation there. Yeah, this is the only rotation I see. But yep, as I mentioned before, gusty winds. You can see all these gusts that could, break trees, kill power, because power lines. It's definitely something to keep in mind as it continues to move through there. Used to live in Martinsburg, moved to Morgantown. Morgantown's a nice place. Martinsburg, not so much. Possible supercell south of Coopertown, Tennessee. I did notice that a little bit. I do want to take a look at this little storm here that was just heading south of Smyrna. And this thing actually does have a little bit of rotation too. So this little thing here should be monitored as well, especially since it'll be moving down south of that of Smyrna. And it won't exactly, I don't believe it's going to head up there completely, but there is definitely some nice little characteristics to where it kind of arcs around to the side. There could be a little bit of rotation there. Something that's developing. So we'll keep an eye on that one as it continues to move up in that area. Let us see. Radar doesn't always show everything. This is true. You just have to rely on ground truth or whatever is happening at the surface. So. Let's see. Raining very hard. Yep, that's what you'll get in this line. This line has just been pretty intense. Let's take a look at some of the reports here. Road flooding reported on the trace 1 mile north of Highway 79 and on Sandy Road at Indian Creek and Dover. So some of these roads have been completely filled up. High water impacting many streets and roads across the county. If you're in a flash flood warning, you need to be at higher ground because there is flooding across the board that people could definitely see. Still flooded due to ongoing evening rains. Storm total rainfall is over 5 inches. That's pretty crazy. Might have been a rain-wrapped tornado. I would highly doubt it. He lives over in Memphis, and Memphis didn't really get a whole lot. But there definitely could have been nice downburst that could have impacted his area. And it does look like that actually was the case, that is a downburst that just occurred over in Memphis. So, any info on Sumner County, Tennessee? So Sumner is already in a severe thunderstorm warning at the moment. Let's see. I believe it's not that one. It's this one. Yep. So this one's in the severe thunderstorm warning that you're in, or Sumner County is in effect until 7:45 p.m. Central Standard Time, and it's for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So depending upon where you are, I'll try and find. So Sumner County is already being impacted right now, but depending upon where you are in Sumner County, you'll have higher, lower wind gusts. So, like, let's say you're near South Tunnel. South Tunnel in itself has got, albeit some pretty gusty winds in itself already. Sustained winds are around 20 to 30 miles per hour. Some gusts could reach 45, maybe 50. But, and you can also see some hail, too. According to the radar, there is a little bit of hail that could seep in through along the line. But it doesn't seem to be too much of a big wind threat, and more or less just kind of like a downpourish, gusty, downpourish little hailer event. But Sumner County, not out of the risk. I would stay indoors for quite a while, because you also have some other storms that are going to be pushing through as well. I wouldn't go outside anytime soon, and if you do have to go outside, drive or be careful. Stay under, I'd say, like a porch. A roofed porch, I should say. Because we all look at, I'm assuming, we all sometimes like to go out on our porch and just watch a storm roll by. Got a 1,450 mile per hour reading on Neptune. Seems legit. Seems legit. What state are these warnings in? So, most of these warnings, or severe thunderstorm warnings, are in Tennessee, but there is one severe thunderstorm warning in Kentucky for Allen, Barron, and Monroe County. And then there's a bunch of flash flood warnings that is just consists of mainly northern Tennessee or northwestern Tennessee, southern and central parts of Kentucky, and just the central to southeastern parts of Arkansas. But still something to keep in mind as it continues to push on through. I just got pinged in Discord. I have no clue why I did, but I did. Let's see. Let's take a look I heard there was a new severe thunderstorm warning, and well, not warning, watch, and indeed there is. This watch is actually east of Nashville, so this is for portions of far south central Kentucky and the central parts of Tennessee. I was about to say middle Tennessee, but that actually doesn't sound. It doesn't roll off the tongue a whole lot, or as good as central. Are we okay in Cadiz, Kentucky? Let me take a look at that real quickly. And while I figure out where that is, just remember that in that severe thunderstorm watch, you could see some damaging wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour and a tornado or two. So you really need to kind of monitor this as this continues to move on through. It looks really dark and windy. Well, I mean, that may just be because it's starting to become pretty dark. So Cadiz looks to be kind of past the risk in itself. Let's see. Yeah, so Cadiz is all the way over here. You could see some just general scattered storms across the board, but if you were a bit further east, then I would say you're not exactly out. But since you're in Cadiz, you're kind of really, not exactly in the main risk anymore. Like, the worst has passed. I'll put it to you that way. Tyler Base, what's up? Welcome to the stream. Long time no see. South of Nolensville, Tennessee, there's a tornado on the ground. I mean, let's take a look. I don't think there exactly is, or at least I don't think any of these storms are primed for a tornado at the moment, especially in Tennessee. Tennessee is kind of pretty dead right now when it comes to tornadoes. But it doesn't seem to be. I'm just looking up and down the line. I didn't really have to go to a specific place, per se. Off topic, but do you think Kansas will see an above average chance for severe weather this spring? Honestly, yeah. But it would be towards the latter part of spring, honestly. Which is typically around the time that you'll find it. But it'll be Have you missed anything? Fell asleep and just woke up? Yeah, there was a tornado in Louisiana, and then a tornado warning in central Tennessee. But otherwise, not really. A bunch of gusty winds. Those straight line winds are a microburst, yeah, most likely. Or at least the stuff in Tennessee. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in Tennessee right now. I think it's mainly, or at least tornado-wise. But there definitely is a lot of gusty winds. Should you be okay in Murfreesboro? Let me take a look for you, sir. That way I could be able to determine. Murfreesboro, Tennessee. So you actually have a storm that's kind of staring right at you. And this was the storm that I was actually talking about earlier that could actually have rotation. Possibly. This one's one of those things to where it's kind of fighting itself, mainly because there was this storm that kind of pushed through, and it created this kind of mini cold front, if you will. And if you guys ever been through a cold front, which I'm assuming all of you have, the temperature typically goes down. And so what happens in this instance is that the temperature is actually lower in and around those areas. And if you have lower temperatures, it's typically not favorable for storms to create these kind of tornadic, instances. But this one's trying. I'll give it that. It's trying. Pika, what's up? Will you be okay in Bossier City? Let me take a look for you. That way I could be able to tell you. Okay, Bossier City. Shreveport. So you guys had something that happened north of you earlier on. But Bossier City, you guys are not out of the clear right now. I mean, you don't have anything at the moment, but you guys will have some stuff later on this evening. But these storms are really moving relatively slow to the east, so it won't be anything anytime soon. I'd say within the next maybe hour, but it still could be something. And you can also see here, you had that tornado warning just to the north near Mira and Vivian. And just to prove my point too, that we had a tornado earlier on, you can take a look and see, here's the correlation coefficient that was associated with that storm. And just to prove that it actually wasn't a fluke, the next scan happens, and you can still see a little bit of the debris there from that storm. And actually, just to show you all something cool, I want to take a slice of the storm. I want to be able to see, if I could, keyword if I could find any debris up in the sky. And yeah, there it is. There's a little bits of debris that I'm looking for. So look at that. You guys notice how this area right here, there's like a rectangle. Well, there's a rectangle right here, and then there's like a little square right here. So if it was only the bottom rectangle that had a little bit of orange, then it probably couldn't have been debris. But because there's a little bit here, and there's a little bits and bobs of debris up in the sky, or little oranges up in the sky, that could very well have been a debris signature. So definitely could have had the opportunity that arose to where there could have been a tornado around State Route 1. So something to keep in mind with that. But yeah, going back on topic here, because we kind of veered off a little bit. Bossier City, which is around Shreveport. You guys don't have anything right now, but you guys definitely could later, especially with the line moving through. What about Cleveland? Sort of in a suburban-y area of it. I can give my direct area because Lamau. I mean, that's completely understandable. So if you're talking about Cleveland, Ohio, then that itself is relatively out of the risk. I mean, you'll get Cleveland weather. I'll tell you that much because, you know, I've been to Cleveland a couple of times. I've also monitored the weather over there a couple of times. It's cloudy. It's rainy sometimes. Sometimes have issues with flooding. But yeah, in this case, it'll just be like mainly cloudy with maybe a little bits and bobs of scattered storms. Let me see if I can get that up for you. So we'll move on through. Yep, so you can see that you have a couple of scattered storms that'll happen around midnight tonight. Nothing too intense. Does anybody think that the severe weather season will be historic? I can't really say for sure, to be completely honest with you. I don't think anyone else can either. But I will say this. I will be here to cover it, as always. So, if you guys like the content that I provide, whether it's breaking down tornadoes or tornado warnings and helping people understand where specific storms are and, you know, the distance and the time into which people can get it, feel free to subscribe and ring the notification bell. That way you guys know when I'm streaming. Hit the like button so that other people can watch it too. And share it with your friends and family. Do that while you're at it, you know? But yeah. It's really really interesting to say the least. Speaking of something really interesting, this storm right here is staring down Nashville like it's got a purpose. Look at this. Look at this storm right here. It's a really nice gust front. This bow echo that's kind of just pushing on through. And notice how Nashville's right here. It's relatively close to Nashville. I mean, if you live in Nashville, I'll get you a timing for you. It'll impact you within the next 5 to 10 minutes. And that's, you know, that's relatively soon. So I would go indoors, honestly. Right now would be around the time in which I'd go indoors. And if you're not indoors, if you're like in a car or something like that, I would drive with caution, probably put your hazard light on, because visibility will drop as if it's not already dark. So it's one of those things to where I would monitor this. I would be careful around with this, especially since some of these conditions, we'll take a look at the velocities, and the velocities are in upwards of 50 miles per hour, maybe even higher than that if you're north of Nashville. Like, say, yeah, in the northern suburbs, there's not really a name for the suburbs of Nashville in the northern parts on this map here, but if you're in the northern parts of Nashville, you could see some gusty winds and upwards of that. Luke Fistler, thank you for coming on to my stream. I really do appreciate it, dude. You have yourself a good night. Those gusty winds definitely could come on through and push on.
We burnt just a quickie timeout. Like 2
No.
seconds.
Oh.
We have to revel in something.
Jeez. All that for something completely irrelevant. Thank you, Father. You are greatly appreciated. Yeah, no, it's a lot of gusty winds here. So, if you live in Nashville, I would head indoors. I really would. Mudfreesboro, we were talking about this earlier. This still does have a little bit of rotation here. Green's moving towards, red's moving away. It's still pretty linear. You can see how everything's kind of like this sideways line. And until it kind of just curls inwards, like it just did now, now we can kind of consider this as possibly being tornadic. So, something to keep in mind with that. I'm going to go. There's another tornado warning. Be back. That's fine. You have a good night, Caden. Thanks for coming around. Really do appreciate it. He's on mute. Yeah, I was just talking to someone. So, but yeah, there is some nice little rotation here. Red's moving away, green's moving towards, maybe even some blues in there. Right in the middle is where the rotation would be. Just heading off towards, let's see if this storm relative can actually work. Yeah, so the north of Mudfreesboro, it's where it's heading. It's actually heading towards the, I think this is what, a regional or municipal airport. It's heading over into that general vicinity. So something to keep in mind with that. Yeah. Where's that storm? This is in Murfreesboro, not Murfrees, which is just to the south and east of Nashville. So, just to give a reference, right here is Nashville, and here is the storm that I am talking about. I believe you're in the clear. Well, you live in West Virginia, so I believe you do. You are in the clear as well. But yeah, this thing definitely looks like it could do something, but it's, as I said, still fighting that that cooler air, so it's not really at peak condition, if you know what I mean. KG Invest, hello, nice to see you around. Is Georgia going to be okay later tonight? Yeah, big gusty winds and some scattered storms, but you should be fine. If you guys are new to the stream and you do like what I do on my channel, leave a like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Also, if you want to go watch me do some stuff when I'm not live streaming weather, you know, just to kind of, you know, figure out, say, hey, I want to know what Nate's like when he's not doing weather. Come over to my Twitch. Go Go follow me, Hockey Boy and 8. Play all sorts of video games and stuff like that. We'll probably do so after tonight too. I may have, even though I have to go into work at 7 in the morning. Don't really care. Northern Georgia has some flood watch areas. Oh yeah. Northern Georgia is definitely doing some stuff. What about Alabama? So Alabama right now is kind of out of the risk. But later on tonight, I would say at around 10, maybe a little bit earlier. Actually, no, not even 10. Northern Alabama, you all could definitely see some stuff past midnight. So 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then Central Alabama, you guys could start seeing some stuff at around, I'd say 6 or 7. So Blackhawks are better than Blue Jackets. Yeah, at this point, I know. The Blue Jackets are throw themselves off of a cliff. It's very unfortunate. Still creeping around, you all just got work and such. That's same, KG. I understand that. Do I ski or board? I do both. Skiing is a lot more of a second nature to me, though. Mainly because I played ice hockey a whole lot, and so I'm used to the whole two blades thing. But yeah, I work as a liftee at a ski resort in Pennsylvania, and I work there 6 days a week because I'm not paying 10 grand for online classes in college. Now I will whenever stuff resumes. Still chasing that meteorology degree, guys, but not right now. Do I do community polls, Nate? Sometimes, but I don't really have a reason to, honestly. But I do polls. So if I get the opportunity, keyword, when I get the opportunity. But yeah, storms kind of push on through, and you can see it actually starts to diminish as time goes along. So that's something to keep in mind with all of that. Let's take a look back at the radar real quickly. We'll look at northern Louisiana into southern Arkansas, because we haven't really peered over there. And there's actually some storms that have little bits of rotation. Not strong rotation, not as strong as the one up in Tennessee, but Karnak, there's a little bit of rotation there. Marshall, a little bit of rotation there. Gray, it's pretty linear, so a lot of gusty winds. But you can see how these storms in general have these kind of curling characteristics. And there is a little bit of rotation in all of these areas. So that's something to keep in mind. Pittsburgh Steelers literally lost an 11-game win streak. Yeah, I remember that. As a Ravens fan, I was pretty happy about that. You guys have Lion A and are still average. It's mainly because we can't get out of our zone. That's is what it is. We suck. JMJ, what's up? Welcome back. Yeah. No, this thing is... These things, I should say, are definitely moving across, but they're not all too strong, so that's the good news. But they could turn severe, maybe even tornadic later on in the evening, but I think the risk for down here is definitely settled down. But it's not over, if you get my drift. Speaking of not being over, this stuff over here in Nashville, it lost a severe thunderstorm warning and then got it back up again. So I mentioned before that this storm right here with a lot of gusty winds, it's still here. It hasn't went out completely. There's still little areas of hail that could come around. Areas of gusty winds. You know, we're looking at the radar here, and we have some gusty, well, some winds, some sustained winds at around 45 miles per hour, and gusts could go up to 10 or even 15 miles per hour higher than that. So some could be the 55 or 60 mile per hour winds, and that's something to keep in mind with all that, because that is in the severe threshold. Back Haven't watched your stream in a while. Been busy. Yeah, same. Did you miss anything? If you weren't on the stream before, there was a tornado that was in Louisiana, but there was also a tornado warning that was here in Tennessee, and it didn't really do a whole lot. Heading towards Nashville, are you good? So, you're good right now, but let me get a storm track here. So, once you get closer towards the Beltway, that's when you won't be good. Because that's when the storms will kind of pick up. But, I would say once you get closer to the Beltway, that's when you really are gonna get, it's gonna start getting pretty sketchy. Let's see. Yeah, there's some of these storms out here that are along the border here. The border of Tennessee and Kentucky. There's a lot of gusty winds here, especially along Gamaliel and Tompkinsville. There's some pretty intense gusty winds here. You can see some in upwards of 40 miles per hour, maybe 45. Well, just sustained winds, and then gusts up to 50 to 55. So that's pretty intense. Going towards Nashville on the 40. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, so you're over there. Yeah. So once you get closer towards the Beltway, that's when you'll start to experience some gusty winds. So if you're anywhere where I think you are, you're probably going to experience it within the next 10 minutes, maybe 15. But that's kind of pushing your luck a little bit. So 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15. I think it's kind of taking a bow shape. Indeed it is. Good catch there. So this right here is indicating a lot of gusty winds that are just surging behind, and it's just jutting out a lot of this rain, and it's consolidating into this kind of bow echo. So, good catch right there. Good catch. We can actually take a look and see the KDP, and it actually supports our thesis that all the rain is kind of consolidating into that area, because the KDP, which just looks at the amount of rain that's falling in a specific area, kind of similar to base reflectivity. It shows that it's a massive downpour along the fork of 65 and 24. So it's pretty interesting. Cat Mom! Long time no see. Nice to see you around. Only true OGs know the real name of Cat Mom. Skywarn team, what's up? Welcome to the stream. Maybe get out of the big rig and seek some shelter. I mean, if you can get behind a building or something like that, so that the wind can kind of pass through. But I mean, it doesn't seem, according to the radar here, it seems the further south you get on the storm, the lesser the actual wind is. But it's still pretty severe. The thing of it is, though, is that the bow echo in itself looks like it's kind of riding either on 40 or just to the north of 40. Like the bottom part of the bow echo in itself, which is just where the gusty winds are, is kind of just like riding alongside it. So you might see some gusty winds along with it. It might be too far north, but I wouldn't risk it, honestly. Especially since if it's moving as fast as it, is, then you'll still see some gusty winds. But it's kind of just like riding along the interstate. You remember Baby Cell? Of course I remember Baby Cell. Baby Cell is the way to go right there. Oh, you're Cody. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Don't know Cat Mom, but hello there. Seems legit. Let's see. Baby Cell, what a legend he lived to be. Oh yeah. Baby Cell is the legend. What is the wind shear at? So let's take a look at the live wind shear here. So bulk shear across the board in those areas is around 60 to 65 knots. Jeez. Super chat. Cat Mom with the $5 super chat. Appreciate it. I don't know why the police did not sound off. Bonkers. That did not do you all justice, didn't it? It's okay. I'll get you your police. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all good. YouTube, donations, and
Police!
there you go.
Police! Police! Help! Police! Help! Police! Help! Help! Police!
There you go. You got your police. I've been fiddling around with my Streamlabs, so it might have messed up a little bit, but probably next stream it'll be able to have it. You remember when the chat was just memes when Nate streamed the Easter outbreak? The Easter outbreak was crazy. I had no chance to look at chat for whatever, you know, to say the life of me. I couldn't. But that's what I get when I had 370 some people watching me at the same time. But yeah, Cat Mom with the $5 super chat. Thank you, my friend. I really do appreciate it. I really do, honestly. And as I said, well, I haven't said this actually. Any of the donations that come to me go right back into the stream. So, or anything weather related, which could mean more equipment for whenever I chase. It could mean new equipment for just streaming in general, whether it's being put into my computer or more weather software, all sorts of stuff. So guess what am I guessing? Is Murfreesboro storm still rotating? So not really. It kind of died. It really did, actually. It really just straight up died. So that's the good news. It's kind of just not there anymore. But remember the Iowa derecho? I couldn't stream that, but I remember it 100%. I was in the middle of West Virginia with no service. None whatsoever. But I remember that. That was crazy. So the severe weather here, still a lot of gusty winds, don't get me wrong. I mean, just the storm that's passing through Nashville right now, it's actually kind of past Nashville, but the areas near Lakewood and Green Hill, you guys are going to get a lot of gusty winds here in like a couple of minutes. But it's still pretty intense, especially the ones heading through Nashville. There isn't really a lot that I could say about the ones near Tompkinsville and Gamale. Mainly because it's pretty far away from the radar, but it's still pretty interesting. Do you make your dream Penn State? I know you want to go there. Yeah, I go to college there, but this semester I'm taking off, mainly because I'm not paying $10K to do online classes. Where are we going? What are you going to do when you go to Penn? I'm still going to stream, because that's what I've been doing. I've still been streaming. I'm still going to. So, because I gotta have a job somehow, some way. So, it's not that big of a deal, trust me. But yeah, there's still a lot of scattered storms in central Tennessee and Nashville, the line heading up into Kentucky. Still a lot of gusty winds along that line. And it's pretty, let's put it this way. Someone said in the chat that they're happy that I've never been in a tornado. I'm sure these people are as well. And I'm happy that there isn't really as many tornadic situations or stipulations up into this storm at the moment. There's already been reports too, reports of gusty winds, I should say, not tornadoes, but a gusty wind report of 54 miles per hour, 47 knots, measured at John Tune Airport, which is just on the western side of Nashville. So that's something to keep in mind there as well. Don't ever quit streaming. I won't. I won't. I love doing this too much. I love talking to you all. I love talking about weather. I love sharing my passion about weather. And people can have all these, you know, different setups saying, oh, they have the best weather setup and all, you know, showing their room and all that. My room may not look the best, but I can tell you my my broadcast and my analysis will be. So that is a guarantee. Blue bag of Takis. Purple bag of Takis is the best. Seems legit. I've been close to a tornado in Dayton, Ohio. Very scary experience. Yeah, that Dayton tornado was... What, actually, wasn't it 2? Wasn't there 2? I think it was pretty crazy. You changed your YouTube name? Yeah, I kind of was just like... I felt like I had to move on from Hockey Boy N8 and change it to Nate Snyder. Now, I still like the N8. N8's still my thing. And I still have Hockey Boy N8 around on my Twitch whenever I stream and when there's no weather. Still do that, but yeah. Bad thing about is that there's hardly any meteorology programs available anywhere. I'm at a community college because I sure ain't making bank for the fortune that is a 4-year college. That is true. Room tour right now? No, we do room tour at 2K subscribers. So if you want to see the room tour, we're at 1,911. We just need 89 more subscribers in order to do it. What about Birmingham? So Birmingham is pretty far out from this line in general. And they won't actually be able to see anything from this line until very early tomorrow morning. At around 5 o'clock, maybe even earlier than that. But you can kind of see how this line kind of consolidates over central Tennessee. This is around midnight. It's actually around 11 o'clock for Central Standard Time users. Or viewers, I should say. But then, as it gets into the Birmingham area, around 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, that's when the storms kind of push through. Maybe even sooner if this thing starts to ramp up quickly, that's kind of what it's been doing. So you might even see it earlier than that. But still, something to keep in mind with that. How about your banner graphic? Is it going to stay the same? No, I'm going to get new graphics and stuff like that. Everything will be updated. So how is Murfreesboro doing? So Murfreesboro, when we last checked, the storm kind of just straight up died, or at least the scattered storm. So there's not really any tornadic rotation anymore. But you guys can start to expect some storms within the next couple of hours that will contain very gusty winds. So that's something to keep in mind with that. On 40, about 15 miles from Nashville, and lots of lightning. Oh yeah. So you're definitely getting close to it. Just real quickly. Oh yeah. So I would say in the next 5 minutes you can start expecting some gusty winds. So I'd brace for that if you can. I have Radar Scope Pro 1 and weather. Ooh. That's not bad. Pretty cool. Why do you keep changing your name on your YouTube channel? This is the only time I've changed my name. The only time I've changed my name. I've always had it as Hockey Boy N8. Even the OGs who started watching me in the beginning, well, towards the end of 2019, that's when it was Hockey Boy N8. And that's when the whole Easter outbreak, that was that too. So I think Murfreesboro will get tornadoes. Honestly, I don't think they'll get I don't think they will, but there is still the chance for it. Especially since you guys, you know, until this tornado watch, you know, not to heavily rely on the National Weather Service, because that's kind of what we have to do here. Until this tornado watch gets canceled, I really can't say that. Well, I really can't rule out that the chance for tornadoes is not there anymore. Remember Hurricane Laura when you said Laura was a Cat 5 and chat was crazy? It was super crazy. I mean, we had multiple drop songs that said it was, and yet people still and yet it's still a Cat 4. It had Cat 5 winds, let's put it that way. It had Cat 5 winds. Whether it was gusts or not, it still had it. Cody, I changed my name because I'm happy, and I'm in the Sky Quarantine in Kansas. Spotter Network. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember you. Yeah. Hey. That makes a lot of sense now I think about it. You think Memphis will get tornadoes? I think if they were to get tornadoes, it would have been a couple hours back. Now the risk is kind of diminished for you all. So now the area that I still think could get tornadoes is this border right here. Louisiana and Texas. Look at this, guys. Look at these little storms that are giving off little appendages. Little hooks, and there's little areas of rotation here. So don't be surprised if the National Weather Service fires off a couple tornado warnings along the border of Louisiana and Texas. Because there are some areas that could definitely see some tornadoes still. Mia Denna. Sup? Welcome back to the stream. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming back, I should say. Usually people just leave. Is there a possible tornado near Nashville? Honestly, I would say no. I would say it's more or less just a strong gusty wind threat. A really strong gusty wind threat, I should say. So, yeesh. Why are you mean to my friend David? He's done nothing and is not scamming the IRS. I'm not being mean to him. Other people have claimed that that's what's happening. I never said anything. But there's evidence that he faked damage, which, by the way, I have to say, if you fake damage or overhype damage in any sort of way, or you overhype anything when it comes, especially with that big of an audience that you have, our credibility as a whole, as weather people, as if it wasn't down already, plummets even more. And how do you think I feel, or other people in the weather community here on YouTube, or even meteorologists would feel, if people started to not pay, like, as if they didn't already pay attention? People just take us lightly now, and they don't listen to us whenever we say that there could be tornadoes. So all I have to say is, for the people who actually do this and overhype and all that, it's a big no-no. And I'm not saying David does it, although there is evidence that he has done it. I would love it if he'd stop it, because we're trying to help people here. We really are. Currently studying, training to be a weather operator, position in the Air Force, trying to get a career in weather, and it's an amazing career to go through. Honestly, I highly recommend it, 100%. So good luck to you over there, Keaton. Love to hear back from you whenever you actually go through it, because I'm actually curious as to how that all works. But it's still pretty cool. Still pretty cool. Why does it say 20:57:30? Yeah, that's the current time in military. Or at least Eastern. That's Eastern Daylight Time. So I gotta change it to Central Standard Time. Let's change that to CST. There we go. So now you guys have it completely there. Bonkers, dude. What is the Vivia, Louisiana situation? Heard they had a tornado on the ground. Yeah, before they did, or at least they did a couple hours ago. But right now they're starting, or the Vivian, I should say, the Vivian area had a tornado in and around those areas, actually north of Vivian. But now they're just getting impacted by the main line, which includes a lot of gusty winds. But further south into Oil City and Mooringsport, there's actually a storm that has a bit of rotation. So that's something to keep in mind with all of that as well. It's really, really something to keep in mind as it continues to move through. Because if this thing increases in speed or strength, then it's that's when people need to continue. That's when people need to just start watching it, like, intensely. So you want to be a meteorologist? You see, we need more meteorologists, honestly. It's a field that doesn't have enough of it, and a lot of people are scared off, mainly because the public portrays us as kind of bleh. Timer does not match. It says 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is actually 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Well, is it 9 right now? Oh, yeah, it is 9 right now. Hold up. Bonkers, dude. Good catch, Joe. Good catch. I didn't know that the time actually automatically adjusted the time zones, so I guess it's just something pretty cool then. The more I know about all that, more I know every day. How are you doing? Doing good, Lance. You're doing good. But yeah, this thing has some pretty interesting rotation here. It's not the best, I will say that, but it's still rotation regardless. You can see the greens moving towards the radar, the reds moving away. Right in the middle is where the rotation would be. Just to the north of Mooringsport and right over Oil City, along State Route 1. So if you live around there, near Belcher and Gilliam in Louisiana, to wherever this parish is. I think this is what, Bossier? Is this Bossier Parish? Oh, it's Caddo Parish. If you live along there, I would just monitor the storm. I wouldn't get underground yet. I would wait until the tornado warning, but for right now. The thing is, you're scared of tornadoes, but you love watching coverages of them and looking at them on TV. You see, let's put it this way. I chase every instance I can. I live in Pennsylvania, so it's kind of hard to chase, but I love dissecting it on screen and all that more than chasing it itself. But I still love to chase it anyways. Like, it's still something that I would rather do than just sitting at home doing nothing. So if you have time, we need to talk. Yeah, Discord. Do I have the name of my Discord in the description of... That is not the correct Discord. Give me a second. I'd have to update it. But in the description down below is my Discord account. So if you want to talk to me, I think it's N8 TV. There we go. Is this correct? Yes, it is. Let us update. And there we go. So yeah, if you want to talk to me, just look at me on Discord or just DM me on Twitter, something like that. But yeah, I love dissecting it. I think you guys can already see that I love talking about, you know, where it is, what it's doing, and where it's going. Do you think it'll be an active year for severe weather or another sporadic year? It'll be better than last year, or at least more sporadic than last year, because last year it was all mainly in April, and this year we will definitely have activity in May. Definitely, 100%. As a matter of fact, I guarantee it that we will have activity in May. So, yep, that's my Discord account. If you wanna, say hi, feel free to float, DM me or something like that. I won't really talk to people until afterwards. I will say that much. But or after the stream. But still, something that if you wanna say hi, go through and say hi. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on GR2 real quick. Tell me if there's anything missing. Appreciate it. I'm still streaming. The only reason why I'm still streaming right now is because there is still these couple of storms that have nice little rotation. And until these officially falter off, when I actually start to see it lose its characteristic, I'm not going to kind of go off of streaming. And there's still storms that are pushing through Nashville, but Nashville does seem to be kind of out of the risk now. That's the good news. I mean, it's kind of behind the storm in itself, but the line's kind of paralleling I-40. So whoever was the trucker, I hope they are safe. At least I hope they are. What would be the weather for Greensboro, North Carolina? Depends on when and where. Well, we already have when, so where? No, not when. We already have where, not when. Duh. Does the bow look more defined, or is it just you? So it doesn't really look exactly defined per se, but it still looks pretty good. I will say that much. The presentation on radar looks pretty nice. By the way, sorry for those who saw the white screen. It's my fault. I did the whiteboard on my Epic pen and didn't go so well for some of your eyes. Just got a video of a few of the EAS alerts for Little Rock. Oh, yeah. EAS scenarios are interesting to listen to, especially weather ones. They may not be the best accurate representations, but still something. Might produce something. It's not a guarantee, mainly a wind threat. Yeah, for right now, I'd say they are. But there's still something to look at. What do you think about the baby cell over Dallas, Tornadic? Let's take a look at that, but with a radar scope. Real quickly. Alright, let's switch screens. There we go. Okay, so the cells over Dallas, they're not really doing a whole lot. The velocities, the only thing I really see is, something worth looking at is the one near Plano. That's kind of moving out of the Dallas jurisdiction into more rural areas. So that's something to keep in mind with that. Is reporting false severe weather damage illegal? I can't remember, but I wouldn't recommend it. I really wouldn't. They are a governmental organization. You're back again. You were on Radar Scope. Well, that's completely fine. Radar Scope is I can understand if you drop the stream for Radar Scope. Wouldn't recommend driving right now if you can avoid it in Nashville. Oh yeah, those storms are, as I said, they were looking at Nashville with a purpose. They were moving through. They were just trucking on. Not to create a pun there, but still, they were moving on through and all that. But yeah, this is what we're looking at for Radar Scope. Doesn't seem to be all too interesting, but cells are cells. I'll say that much. So a lot of gusty winds, and there's a new tornado warning. Look at that, chat. We've mentioned before, we said that this thing could be tornadic, and indeed it is. Tornado warning for Bossier, Caddo, and Webster Parish in Louisiana. That'll be in effect until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Just taking a look at on the reflectivity here, you can clearly see the hook here and the inflow unimpeded. You can also actually see that this little bump right here, this is the inflow kicking up dust and other precipitation that's just screaming in. So all this is inflow, and you can literally see the dust being kicked up by that inflow, which is pretty cool to say the least. Especially since you usually don't see those unless if the storm is actually like sucking in a lot of inflow. So if you live anywhere near Belcher, Gilliam, Antrim, Alden Bridge, Plain-Dealing, anywhere along United States Route 71, State Route 3 in Louisiana, you guys need to go ahead and get into your safe space. Get underground or get into the lowest innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet with no windows, so you can put as many walls between yourself and the tornadic rotation as possible. Let's get some timings out here, because this actually looks aesthetically pleasing to the eye for being a tornadic storm. And this could easily wrap up into being a tornado too. But the timing here, it'll cross over United States Route 71 in about 5 minutes. Maybe a little bit less than that, because the transmission that you see here is a little bit behind from when it actually is live. But still, around 5 minutes, give or take, is when it actually will push through. And then once it gets across to the State Route 3 area near Antrim and Alden Bridge, you can expect the storm to be there at around 15 to 20 minutes. So something to keep in mind if you live over there. You guys could go underground or innermost part of your building, but you guys also have enough time to get helmets and pillows and stuff like that to be able to protect yourself from any sort of possible tornadoes that could drop from here. But yeah, as I said, a tornado warning has been issued for Webster, Caddo, and Bossier Parish, and that'll be in effect until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. The new frame for the reflectivity is came in, and you can see here that this is a lot more of a hook here. This is exactly what you do not want to see. And you could also see, as I mentioned before, the little appendage of the storm just sucking in as much energy as it can to try and sustain. And usually when you see those little appendages there, that's when you know that the storm is actually sucking in a lot of energy. Let's take a 3D of this storm, because I feel like this actually would be the storm to take a 3D for. And this actually helps support my thesis here as to what it looks like, or what it's doing, I should say. So here's the storm, and we'll show the lit volume because we can. So here's the rotation itself. Here's the storm that is tornado warned. You can see right here, there's kind of this little arc right here, and that's the kind of inflow notch that allows the energy to push into the storm and feed it so that it can sustain. So whenever you see that there, that's when you know that there's the possibility for there to be some sort of tornadic rotation in and around that inflow notch. But still, screaming inflow heading into the storm. The inflow notch is there, and you have the outflow setting up on this side. It's looking pretty strong across the board there. Yeah, Nashville is pretty strong there. There's a lot of gusty winds over there in Nashville. But for right now, we're going to just stick with this tornado warning, mainly because we really want to kind of stay with this if there's anyone that could be impacted by this. The storm that's over near Tennessee, I'm looking at it right now on radar scope, and it does seem as if it's a bit more of a gusty wind threat, not really as much tornadic. Although there is a little area, but it's not really anything too organized. So this storm is really the storm that we should monitor. As I said, look at this. hook right here. The inflow looks absolutely wonderful, especially with this clear as crystal on radar. This inflow band that's just surging into the storm. And the spectrum width looks pretty nice here. So there's some convergence that could indicate a lowering. The rotation here, not as strong, but you'll see an uptick in rotation as time goes along. But you can definitely see here, red's moving away from the radar, green's moving towards. The radar is somewhere down here, so right in the middle is where the rotation would be. And as that heads over United States Route 71, that's where people need to continue to stay in their safe spaces. Let's see. A new tornado warning has been issued for Mississippi. So now we're starting to get a lot of this. It's starting to ramp up now, guys, just a bit. So new tornado warning for Benton, Lafayette, Marshall, Tippah, and Union counties. That'll be in effect until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And as we take a look at the velocities here, or actually, let's take a look at the, yeah, we're going to be on the velocities here, so we'll be able to see it. But as soon as this loads up, we'll be able to talk about it. So let's just take a look at what the satellite has to say. And it says it has a 79% chance of producing a tornado. And look at this. Look at this on velocity. I'll take a look at a reflectivity real quickly because it's looking pretty bonkers in itself. But you can see there's two areas of rotation. One here just to the west of Waterford. Another right here just to the west of Abbeville. So these two areas right here definitely have some rotation, and people in these areas, especially around Potts Camp, Hickory Flat, Myrtle, you guys need to get into your safe spaces, especially Abbeville. If you live along State Route 7 in Mississippi, from Abbeville all the way up into Waterford, you need to be in your safe space now. As soon as you hear this transmission, go there, because it's by the time you hear this, you will need to go into your safe space. It'll be on top of you. So please go into your safe space, get underground or get into the lowest innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or a closet with no windows, so you can put as many walls between yourself and the tornadic rotation as possible. Let's get some timings out for you all. I said that Abbeville and Waterford will be impacted immediately as soon as you heard this transmission, but people around Potts Camp, Winborn, Hickory Flat, Myrtle, you guys could start seeing these conditions at around 10 to 15 minutes if you're in like Potts Camp or Winborn. Hickory Flat, I'd say 15 to 20, maybe even 25 minutes from now, and Myrtle 25 minutes from now as well. So just some timings for you all. If you're over at Hickory Flat and Myrtle, you guys have a little bit of time, so you can get helmets, pillows, and stuff like that, so that you'd be able to have extra protection if there was these tornadoes that could pass on through. Is that gate to gate? Let's take a look at the gate to gate velocities here. We'll take a look at the storm relative velocity to be able to tell better. So 52 on top of 52 is widespread, so that's 104. But gate to gate, 47 and 30. Oh, geez. Oh, okay, chat. Yeah, people near Potts Camp and Hickory Flat need to get underground now. Get everything that you need, helmets. Go now. This is ramped up quite a bit, and it's getting pretty concerning. And you know, if I have to say that, and I'm all the way over here in Pennsylvania, it's looking like it's getting a little bit worse. And this thing is looking up 4,500 feet up in the sky, so it's actually not that bad. The rotation is actually legitimate. So you need to just go ahead and get into your safe space. As I said, Benton, Lafayette, Marshall, Tippah, and Union counties in Mississippi, you are in a tornado warning. And if you live near Winborn, Potts Camp, Hickory Flat, and Myrtle, you guys need to go ahead, get into your safe space. And now look at that. Look at that. You can see that there's clearly a hook there. You can see that there's clearly an inflow notch. Let's take a 3D of it. I want to see what the actual storm looks like in a larger scale. And yeah, there's the inflow notch. Look at it. There is the inflow notch right there. You can see this It's not as well defined as you typically would think it is, but there is a nice looking inflow notch right in here. So if you live anywhere along United States Route 78, you need to go into your safe space now. Like, there's no question, you need to go there. Let's go back over to the tornado warning over here in Bossier, Caddo, and Webster parishes, because believe it or not, that's what they call their counties in Louisiana. The rotation does seem to have kind of veered off just a little. It's not really all too, little compared to what it was, but the storm still looks primed as a supercell. You can clearly see it has an appendage here. You can clearly see it has its inflow band. You can clearly see it has its outflow notch. So it's still something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through. But, something that people really need to watch and continue to look at as it continues to move on. But I wouldn't be rating, guys, especially since we don't have any footage or we don't have any damage. Radar doesn't really give us conclusive evidence as to what's happening on the ground, especially since we're looking up at the ground. But yeah, this storm definitely looks like it could for sure wrap up if it got enough outflow. And the outflow is basically just the rain. So the storm kind of just swirls up the rain, pulls it around, and it meets the warm, moist inflow. And in the middle is where the tornado kind of sits. So right in that gray area, if it wraps around a bit more rain, then you could definitely see the chance of a tornado appear at its peak. So something to keep in mind with that. As I mentioned before, if you lived along State Route 3 near Alden Bridge and Antrim, you guys need to go ahead and get into your safe space now. It'll be impacted within the next 5 to 10 minutes, and it will definitely at least give you a run for your money. If it's not on the ground, you'll get a lot of gusty winds, especially with the rear flank downdraft. Let's take a look back at the storm over here in Mississippi. Look at this storm, guys. It actually looks pretty insane. The rotation on reflectivity is evident. There's a clear hook with an outflow boundary here. Outflow boundary is just the remnants of the rain. There's clearly rotation here. Green's moving towards the radar. Red's moving away, or even orange is moving away. Right in the middle is where the rotation is. I'm going to take a look at the spectrum width. Indeed, it does have some correlating pixels that are kind of concerning, especially since it's a bit more intense. But correlation coefficient, there's not really a whole lot, especially since we are looking up 4,000 feet up in the sky. But there could be something that we could be seeing here, especially with this storm. The rotation, 49 miles per hour in one instance and 57 in another. That's over 100 miles per hour, guys. That's actually a 106 mile per hour delta velocity. So that's pretty crazy here. The software, by the way, that I'm using for this one here is GR2 Analyst with a couple of extra add-ons. You can add add-ons onto GR2 Analyst. But yeah, this storm definitely looks relatively intense. So I mentioned before, people around Winborn, Hickory Flat, you guys should be in your safe space, whether you have helmets or pillows to put on extra protection. You still need to get there, because this thing definitely looks like a storm that it could produce a tornado. I don't see any debris signature for sure. Definitely could have been right here. Nah, there's no debris signature right now that I can see visible. But these storms are definitely starting to ramp up a bit more now, since they're kind of out of that cold pocket of air, and the winds are, well, the wind shear is really just starting to kind of seep into these storms. So Windborne, you're going to be impacted with the next 5 to 10 minutes. Hickory Flat, 10 to 15 minutes. Myrtle, around 15 minutes. So if you guys are in your safe spaces by then, or even earlier, I'd prefer earlier, because we'd rather be safe than sorry. That would be amazing. And if you know anyone who lives over there, either tell them or show them the stream, share it with friends and family that live around in here, and you'll be able, or they will be able to see it for themselves. Let's see, new scan came in. By the way, this little thing right here, this is just the radar going through a patch to where it's just messing up with the data. So it's not actually what's happening there, but there is still strong rotation with this, as you can clearly see with the reflectivity. You would typically want to look for these hooking characteristics on these storms, and this is exactly what you can see here, especially since you have the outflow wrapping around all this cool rain that's pushing on through, and then the inflow, which typically would not have any rain whatsoever associated with it. It's typically warm, moist, and quite windy, pushing itself into the storm. So classic supercell here along the line. And actually, I want to take a 3D of this storm again. I want to be able to see, oh yeah, so there's the inflow notch again. This is what we're looking for in the storm. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. So anything that we could typically find that's a bit more of a that has an arcing characteristic. So you see how there's like this kind of nook or cranny here. That is the inflow notch, and that is where the moisture seeps in and feeds the thunderstorm. So as it continues to feed the thunderstorm, the storm can either sustain or get stronger, depending upon how much moisture there is that it's taking in, or all the energy. So that's something to keep in mind as it continues to move on through, that it does have an inflow notch, and it is taking in energy so that it could possibly sustain itself as it continues to move on through. But definitely a dangerous situation as it continues to head towards areas along United States Route 78. So Potts Camp, you're now starting to get impacted by the actual downdraft part of it that's kind of north of the storm, but you could definitely experience some tornadic conditions from it relatively soon. But still something to keep in mind as it continues to push off to the east northeast. Michael Lauer, what's up? Welcome to the stream. And as I said, if you know anyone who lives in these areas, whether it's here in Mississippi in Benton, Lafayette, Marshall, Tippah, or Union counties, or if it's in Louisiana down north of Shreveport, in Bossier, Caddo, or Webster parishes, please tell them to go ahead and get into their safe space, or show them the stream. That way they could be able to look at this stuff live and be able to have accurate data as to where these storms are going and what they are doing in itself. So please just tell them that this is all happening around them, if you know anyone who lives here. So I do not see a correlation coefficient drop, or at least none that's really clear. There might be one right here, but I don't really see it as defined, especially since it's pretty foggy as you go up with height. But checking DMs. So that's kind of a part of the radar slipping up. But it's definitely looking pretty interesting. I will admit that. This storm is definitely ramping up a bit. What do you think about David saying he hates his fans? I mean, from my experience, you know, because David's done a couple of uncalled for things towards, you know, me and a couple other people that I know. Um, I wouldn't really be surprised. I've had people who've worked for him said that he's only in it for the money, but I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to say. But I won't really get into that. I'd rather get into this tornado here, or this tornadic storm that could be impacting people's lives. Especially since it's now heading towards Potts Camp and Winborn and Hickory Flat. And this is exactly what we were not hoping would happen. There isn't really a lot of people that live up here, or at least I don't think there is. It's pretty pretty rural. But regardless, it is still something that we never want to see. We don't want to see this impact anyone, and we for sure don't want to see anyone lose a lot of things from these types of storms. Which is the reason why, you know, I kind of do this. I want to help people. I want to help get the word out and try and save lives if I can. And I love also, you know, putting my passion of meteorology out to other people too. So it's a bit of a win-win for me. I love doing this, but I also love dissecting storms, and I love studying this, and that's basically pretty much it. What's going on with the tornado warning? I stepped away for a minute. So the storm in Mississippi, the hook is kind of faded a bit. It might recycle, it might not. Right now, it's kind of in a phase to where it's pretty linear since the winds have kind of caught up to it. But the rotation that it did have is now towards Potts Camp and Winborn. So right now, it's kind of bleh. How's Spring Hill, Tennessee? Spring Hill, Tennessee. I guess Spring Hill, Tennessee. By the way, as I said, I wasn't really gonna be talking about a whole lot of stuff since there's kind of a tornado or a tornado warning. Spring Hill, Tennessee. It'll be fine for right now. It'll be fine for right now. It's not being impacted by anything, so. Good night, Becca. Thanks for coming out to the stream. Do exactly what she said. Be safe with this storm. Yeah, you're never too old to study weather. I agree with you there. But yeah, you'll be fine. So this storm right here that was near Antrim has kind of died a little bit. It still has a little bit of rotation, but it's just kind of said, I'm out. But it still has, you know, this classic hooking feature. And the thing about it too is this storm right here that had rotation before, this outflow boundary, what this basically is it's basically a mini cold front. So what it's essentially making the air colder around the storm. And since, as I mentioned before, storms love warm, moist inflow, this storm is basically killing this storm because it's making the air around this one cold. So it's kind of funny watching through and seeing how some of these storms, you know, they go through all this trial and tribute to get stronger just to get killed off by some other storm. Which is good news for people, especially since these guys who have been impacted over and over again by some of these other storms, including one near Vivian. But yeah, just subbed. Hope this guy can do this when I'm getting hammered here in Ohio. Oh yeah, I did that last year when stuff was going through Cleveland and Canton. I did that. So yeah, if I get the opportunity, as I mentioned before earlier on in the stream, I work 6 days a week mainly because I was going to college for meteorology in Penn State. Then I decided I wasn't going to pay $10K for online classes. So working and working. What's been happening? We got 2 tornado warnings. Both are kind of meh right now. They were pretty good before, but now it's kind of just not as good. So Is Georgia okay for tonight? Yeah. You won't be seeing anything until earlier on tomorrow morning, but it's still it's gonna be all right for tonight. Yeah, if you guys are new to the channel and you do like the content that I provide, please please feel free to leave a like and subscribe, as well as share this with friends and family, because this does help me out in the long run. It helps me, you know, because on YouTube everyone's got to make money here, so it does help me make a little bit of cash to put back into the stream. This does, you know, for in general look, this does, if you like the stream, get out to more of an audience so that people can tune into the stream and be able to look at the content that I provide, especially since, you know, this is accurate live weather that could be impacting people, so they get to look at the stream and watch it. And then the more subscribers I get, the more YouTube gets to look at me to give me special perks so that I can help put it back into the stream, which will be pretty cool. So basically, you help me, I help you, and yeah, that's basically how it is. And if you guys also want to watch me whenever I don't do stuff like this, so basically whenever there's no weather going on, you guys can go follow my Twitch, which is HockeyBoy8, all one word. And yeah, we play video games, do Storm Chasers. When Outbreak comes out, we'll be playing Outbreak. Ooh, this thing's definitely starting to try now. Look at it. Got that little appendage again. The inflow is starting to seep in. And wow. I don't see anything on correlation coefficient. I was looking for a debris ball, and there isn't one, which is the good news. The ZDR here, for those of you who don't know, this is the differential reflectivity. The Z is silent, but this basically looks at rising motion, or updrafts in this case, and the updrafts can help correlate to whether or not there's tornadic development or if there's hail. So up here there would be hail, but down here, because there's rotation or tornadic rotation, this is actually a tornadic updraft. So there actually is a tornadic updraft here, compared to some other times. CamWB93, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate that. I really do. And then Team Kenny99, thank you for the follow on Twitch as well. I really do appreciate that as well. Will it just rain for early in the morning in Georgia? Yeah, for the most part. For the most part, that's basically what'll happen. Let's go back to this tornado warning over here in Benton, Lafayette, Marshall, Tippah, and Union counties. As I said, ooh, oh, look at this rotation now. Look at that rotation now. It looks like it's kind of recycled. It looks like it's kind of recycled, chat. And that's not a good thing. That is not a good thing. I mentioned before in Hickory Flat, I hope you're in your safe space now. You definitely should be, but look at that rotation, chat. That is some pretty intense rotation. Orange is moving away, green's moving towards, right in the middle is where the rotation would be, and look at this large, massive rotation. That is pretty, pretty broad, but pretty strong too. So Hickory Flat, you better be in your safe space now. As soon as you get this transmission, if you live in Hickory Flat, you should be in your safe space. 100%. And if you live along United States Route 78, you should be in your safe space. Underground or innermost part of your building, particularly a bathroom or closet, on the lowest level. Make sure you're on the lowest level. Don't be up on the second floor, because even if it's a weaker tornado, some weak tornadoes can take off the second floor and leave the bottom floor fine. So that's the reason why they say lowest floor, innermost part. That way you can put as many walls between yourself and the tornadic rotation. So if you live in any of these areas, as I said, Hickory Flat, United States Route 78, or anyone near Blue Mountain into State Route 15, you need to go to your safe space. Delta velocity, someone asked for that. Let's go find it. Let's place a marker here. Place a marker here. 67 knots. In the frame before, it was 83 knots. So it looks like it was definitely at its worst before. I think what's happening right now is there is still rotation, but it's kind of like the actual front itself is leaving the rotation behind. So you can see the rotation's kind of right here. It kind of has this backwards curl, a little inflow in the back. But this huge line of storms that's just kind of all connected to each other is surging on through, creating all these gusty winds. It's outrunning the actual speed of the rotation. But still, regardless, because I've seen tornadic rotations lagged behind still produce tornadoes. So that's still something to keep in mind with all that. Keaton Mesmer with the $5 super chat. You may have a busy month in April or May. We'll be watching from Ohio. Use this wisely, JK. Keaton Miser, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I really do. Usually we'd have a sound for that, so I might as well play it now. Yep, everyone's saying police.
Police!
There's the police.
Police!
That's usually the sound for it,
Police!
but my Streamlabs is being bonkers at the moment, so
Police!
it's having a whale of a time. But yep, thank you for the $5 super chat. I really do appreciate it. And as I said, it just goes straight back into my stream, so that's the good news there. What else is the good news is Potts Camp and Winburn is out of the tornadic risk gear. And the other good news is it looks like the rotation has kind of subsided a little bit. We can take a look here and see from the past few frames of how it looked really good, looked better, looked really good, and then it kind of just went down. So, good news for the people in Potts Camp and Winburn. Hickory Flat, you're not out of the risk. Stay indoors. Myrtle, I'd say stay indoors, honestly. I'd say stay in your safe space. As I said, underground or innermost part of your building. Blue Mountain, personally, you're not in the tornado warning, but personally, I'd say get into your safe space now. Just in case if they decide to reissue the tornado warning. So, I'd say stay in your safe space. Let's go back to the tornado warning back over in Louisiana in the parishes. You can still see that this thing has really nice presentation here on reflectivity. So, it's still trucking around, and it still has an outflow boundary here, but it's not as strong as its counterpart to the north. We'll say that much. Was it on the ground? No. Or at least I didn't think it was on the ground, the one in Mississippi. I don't think this one in Louisiana is on the ground either, but it's still looking. Still trucking through. Omen S with the $3 super chat says, it's time I showed support. Keep it up, man. Omen, thank you, dude. I appreciate it. You've been on this channel for quite some time. I really do appreciate all that you do. We gotta do the police, because that's kind of what we do here.
Police! Help! Police! Help! Police!
Underground tornadoes are the most dangerous of them all.
Police!
Yeah. Can you imagine? But no, still, as I mentioned before, 2 tornado warnings. Bossier and Webster parishes in Louisiana. They'll be in effect until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And the tornado warning over in Benton, Lafayette, Marshall, Tippah, and Union counties in Mississippi. That'll also be in effect until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you live over in those areas, you need to stay in your safe space. Unless if you're over in Potts Camp in Winborn, Mississippi, then you guys can get out of your safe space. So, but yep, that's basically the majority of the tornadic storms. There is a new severe thunderstorm warning for the Mississippi tornado warning. So that one's for Union, Tippah, Benton, Tishomingo, Prentiss, and Alcorn counties, and that'll be in effect until 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts, a quarter-sized tail, and there is a tornado possible tag on that. So the National Weather Service hasn't fully discarded that there is a chance for tornadoes with this storm still, but they just issued a severe thunderstorm warning to make sure that people are warned that they could get real gusty winds. Nate's only 800 subs from 2K. That is incorrect, sir. I've got 1,920 something. Whatever that is. 22. So I got 78 from 2K, which that's when we'll get our room tour. But that's for another day. That's another day. Wasn't there an F2 in Tishomingo last year or something? There's actually an F1. It actually had a tornado emergency, believe it or not. Which, by the way, if you guys want to take a look at that, you can go back into the streams that I did, and I actually covered that. I also did the Easter outbreak, but unfortunately, because I did a 36-hour live stream, the one live stream that I did for 24 hours actually didn't register because YouTube doesn't like it when you do that. So, unfortunate. But that's where I got most of my subscribers from, was that stream. So I have a history of dissecting these storms. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just some sort of chum off the street. You know? Just, you know, crapping himself about the weather, thinking he knows what he's doing. No, I've been doing this for quite some time, so I have some experience. Are you in the clear for any severe weather? So you said that you lived up in West Virginia. I would say no. I'd say you guys could have some flooding, but other than that, not really. Remember Forest County? Oh yeah, that's I think it's my second highest viewed video. But I remember doing that with AJ. Actually, I was watching it earlier on this morning. I was bored at work. Any confirmed tornadoes today? Not any confirmed, but I personally think that there was a tornado near Vivian earlier on today. We saw a debris signature at least. Or at least I'm pretty sure we saw a debris signature. So there's at least been one tornado, in my honest opinion. Yeah, this rotation, we're not really getting a lot of justice, mainly because we're looking up so small, so close to the ground. But higher up, we can definitely see that there is rotation on the storm, and it definitely is worthy of a tornado warning. As bad as it may look, but you can still see the outflow wraps around, inflow is still present, and it still has nice little rotation here in this nice little supercell. So as I mentioned before, Bossier and Webster parishes in Louisiana, because that's what they call counties. They call it parishes, not counties. If you live in those areas, you need to go ahead and get into your safe space. Unless if you're near Alden Bridge and Antrim, then you guys can, you guys are safe. But Sarepta, you guys need to go ahead, get into your safe space. Let's actually get a storm track here. And Sarepta, you guys are going to be impacted in about 5 to 10 minutes. Same thing with State Route 7. It's already paralleling State Route 2, so State Route 2, it's kind of hard to dictate as to what time you're going to be without a actual town. But I will say that Shongaloo, I should say, you guys could be impacted by this storm or the riffling downdraft of this within the next, I'd say, 20 to 25 minutes. So, something to keep in mind with that as that continues to move on through. Let's go back to the storm in Mississippi, and it looks like we're 11 minutes away from everything being expired, or the 2 tornado warnings, but it looks like the tornado or the tornadic rotation has actually moved out of the actual warning box. So I think they're going to keep it as a severe thunderstorm warning for now and cancel the tornado warning. Well, at least relatively soon, I would think that's what they would do. But still, there's a tornado warning over there, and you're going to want to continue to monitor that as it continues to push on through. Especially since this severe thunderstorm warning, this is the only severe thunderstorm warning out that's been issued. But 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail is not anything to, kind of roll your eyes at and kind of just push off to the side. Yeah. 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts can push over trees and power lines, cause power outages. And hail like that can leave dents in cars, as well as cracks in windshields. So, it can also do damage to people if they walk around. Not that I think there's going to be people walking around at 9 o'clock at night, but still. It's one of those things to where you don't want to be outside. You don't want to be in your car. Let's see. Put that up there so that way we'll be able to know if anything new comes in on IEMBot. We haven't been on IEMBot all day, but we might as well have it up just to make sure that we know what's going on. And we're like up to date. Scared of the flood? Well, if you seek higher ground, you should be fine. It's not going to be like all too bad. Flood advisory. That's nice. ZDR is still there, the Tornadic ZDR, so there is still a tornadic updraft there. But it does look like the hook's kind of lagging behind. Typically, you would want it to kind of curl around, and this hook's kind of turned into what we're gonna be like tomorrow on a Monday whenever we want to go home. Kind of lagging behind there. Speaking of lagging behind, the tornado warning for these parishes has been canceled. So that's the good news there, that the stuff here in Sarepta has been deemed non-tornadic or went below tornadic capabilities. So all is left is for this tornado warning here in Mississippi, even though it looks like it's kind of out of the way now. I do want to take a look at this line and see if there's anything else that's kind of tornadic. There does seem to be little appendages across the board here, but it doesn't seem to be too intense, which is the good news. Can you see how long until Murfreesboro gets hit with the big storm? Yeah, here. Give me a second. I'll pull this up real quickly. College kids be walking around at night. Well, but are they going to be walking around? Well, is there a college over there? Number one. And number two, if they are. Well, college kids, and I can speak for myself, are pretty stupid. Not going to lie. So, as a whole, at least. As a whole, we're pretty stupid. Alright, Murfreesboro. Someone wanted to know when you could be impacted. I would say 5 to 10 minutes. honestly. That's when you can start seeing some gusty winds. I don't see any huge areas of rotation. But Nashville kind of went through all of that. Had some hail reports too. Look at that. So there's my thesis on getting gusty winds and the bits and bobs of hail was pretty spot on. Even though we did have the maximum expected hail size kind of help out. Still. Something to keep in mind. Very heavy rain and windy in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Yeah, Spring Hill kind of just got hit by that line. But it isn't really like too gusty, which is the good news. So it's not going to really be like overpowering. Finally, they updated that they got rid of the tornado warning for Bossier and Webster. So now all that's left is the Benton, Lafayette, Marshall, Tippah, and Union County tornado warning, and that should definitely go down soon. So, is it going to be bad in Laurel, Mississippi? Not until a lot later tonight, well, tomorrow morning, and it won't even be bad anyways. It'll be kind of like this gusty wind with a bit of lightning. Not really anything tornadic in my honest opinion. We'll take a look at the models here, actually. Is there a tornado? There was a tornado, Benjamin, but not anymore. So, Laurel is, what? Kind of central... Hold up. I gotta just make sure where Laurel, Mississippi is. I gotta make sure. Yeah, so south central Mississippi. That's what I was figuring. I'll actually readjust so that we can actually have Laurel in our crosshairs here. And so the line itself doesn't actually push through until early tomorrow morning. Which is good news for you all, because not only is it pushing through it around that time, but it's not even as strong as it once was. You can see clearly here that later tonight, at around midnight, these storms are going to be impacting areas from Shreveport to Monroe, all the way over to Jackson, up to northern Alabama, into like Huntsville. And, you know, you can see a lot more of these yellows and maybe even oranges. But then, as it continues to move on through to the day, 13Z, 14Z, 13Z is what, 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock Central? And there's not really a lot of these little yellows anymore. So that's the good news for you all. It's not really going to be all too intense. Let's see. Is there any baby cell merch coming out? We were talking about it last summer in one of your streams. Yeah, so here's the thing. I didn't really have enough money to create a merch line. But if this year, if it actually goes pretty well and stuff like that.
All dry, all clean.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night. See you in the morning.
Night. If this year goes pretty well for me and I start getting like a lot more popularity, then yeah, we might have merch coming out with Baby Cell and all that. Radar Man. What's its face? Will New Orleans area get anything tomorrow or Tuesday? Let's take a look. We'll use the NAM for this. So, tomorrow you guys might get scattered storms. Tuesday, you guys also might get scattered storms. It could get pretty cold too. Like probably, hold up, let's take a look here. Yeah, 50s and 60s. So you guys might get something. But nothing too big, to be completely honest with you. Which is the good news here. It's always the good news. Florida might get something on a... late Wednesday. Maybe. But yep, Tuesday is definitely a day to where you could get something. Maybe a little, but not really too intense. The heck is that? That's over water. Thank God that's not over land, because that would definitely be doing damage. Bonkers, dude. Yep, Tuesday into Wednesday, though, there might be something over near Pensacola and Tallahassee. More or less Tallahassee, not Pensacola. Well, actually, yeah, both. So. Alright, so there's still the tornado warning here. And I don't actually want to end the stream until the tornado warning expires, which is a minute from now. But I do want to take a look and see, just look over the general areas and see if there's anything that could potentially have anything tornadic. More flood advisories. Like we knew that wasn't going to come out. Yeah, no, there's a lot of gusty winds, but I don't see a whole lot of tornadoes, or at least tornadic rotation. Yep, so the tornado has not, or the tornado warning has now been canceled. So there's no more tornadic rotations here, according to the National Weather Service, and I don't really see anything to back. I don't really see anything so that I could back up their claim. I do want to take a look down into Mississippi, see the storm again. I don't really see a whole lot. That's the good news. Let's take a look down at Shreveport to kind of look over and see if there's anything. And then if there's nothing, then we'll head off for the night. Might play video games on Twitch. Before we do end it, I will say, if you did enjoy the stream, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, leaving a like helps me so that this stream gets out to other people. Subscribing helps me so that I can actually gain a larger follow base and appear on more people's feeds, which then helps out so that people can actually be able to click on the video and be able to watch it live. And then sharing it with friends and family. Sharing it with friends and family helps me because then you know what content you're going to look at, and if you're getting impacted, they all know where to go because your boy is going to be streaming it. So, Mia, you're always back at the weirdest times. Yeah, no, this is really kind of it, mainly because there isn't really a whole lot left. Most of the storms kind of died out today. Or right now, I should say. But earlier on today, it definitely was looking rather interesting. Especially with the gusty winds pushing through Nashville. And of course the tornado in northwestern Louisiana. So, what about a new round of storms that's going to fire up in central Texas? It's not really going to be like too big per se. Oh, new mesoscale discussion. Oh boy, hold up. Isolated severe threat may continue for a couple more hours across the Arctic Texas tornado, along with wind damage and hail will be possible. Extension time may be needed after expiration of 4Z. So, they say that there is still some areas along here that could have tornadoes, which I agree. I agree that there could be some areas along here that could definitely have some rotation and it could produce a tornado. Unfortunately, because I have to work tomorrow, I actually have to clock in at 7 o'clock, which means I have to get up at 5:30 and leave for 6:20 because I take a while to get ready. It's typical. And, yeah. So, I probably won't be able to stream on Twitch. Now, tomorrow I probably will. Tomorrow I'll probably stream on Twitch, which, as I said, if you want to go watch me play video games just to see how, like, what I'm like outside of YouTube and weather, Hockey Boy and 8. I'll see you there whenever I can get on because work is a pain. But otherwise, that's gonna be pretty much it for me. We're 3 likes away from 100. Which actually, honestly, I'm pretty proud of. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Anytime we can get around 100 is pretty nice. So, I'm not gonna complain. I rarely complain anyways. But I just want to say thank you all for everything you've all done. We have 1,929 subscribers. That's we've gained about 30 in this stream alone, and that kind of gives me a nostalgia to before I had 1,000, when I'd just be happy to get 10, 5, or whatever. So for us to get stuff like this, absolutely amazing. Appreciate you guys. Just Tayaki, thank you for the follow on Twitch. I really do appreciate it. And people are saying 100. Yeah, we have 104 likes now. So all I had to say was we're so close to 100, and you guys helped me out. So thank you guys for hooking me up. I really do appreciate every single one of you. I hope all of you have a good night, and whenever there's another event for severe weather, I will try to make it out, because as I said, work's gonna be a hassle to try and get out of, but
here we go.
I'll do all that I can to try and help you out. And then once we get into March, that's when my work will be over, and that's when I'll be fully committed to YouTube, to where every day I'll be able to stream and I'll be able to talk about tornadoes with you all. So thanks again for helping me out. Thanks again for making my time on YouTube amazing, as always. And I will see you guys in the next live stream. So stay safe, everyone. Peace.